Chapter 697. The treasure that Prince Zhongli mentioned was one of the secret treasures of the Fire Clan, the Fire Spirit Pagoda. This was a top-heaven origin stage magic tool that could help him detect the aura of the nine-flame spirit vein. Everyone discussed for a while and decided on their future plan. Ji Tianqing and Yan returned to the Emperor Mansion to wait for news. Prince Zhongli and the two fire generals were responsible for searching for Huiyan's traces. During this period, both sides used Qingfeng Courtyard as their contact point and foothold. After making the plan, Ji Tianqing found the Beast King and explained the situation. Naturally, the Beast King agreed without hesitation and had no objections. Ji Tianqing left with Yan. Prince Zhongli and the two fire generals rested in Qingfeng Courtyard for a day and then began to move. Although they had just arrived in Central Continent City and were not familiar with the situation in the city. But this was also one of the benefits of making it easier for them to move. No one knew Prince Zhongli and no forces noticed them. They moved quietly in Central Continent City and used the Fire Spirit Pagoda to search for the aura of the nine-flame spirit vein. 3 days passed quickly. Early in the morning, Ji Tianqing was still meditating in his room when he heard Yan calling from outside the door. "Senior brother Tianqing, there's news. Third uncle has found Huiyan." Ji Tianqing quickly stopped cultivating and got up and walked out of the room. Yan was standing outside the door. Her small face was filled with joy and excitement. "Let's go to Qingfeng Courtyard." Ji Tianqing did not waste time. He quickly left the Emperor Mansion with Yan and rushed to Qingfeng Courtyard in Fish Dragon Alley. 2 hours later, when the two of them arrived at Qingfeng Courtyard, the Beast King was already waiting for them in the hall. Time was tight. After the two sides met, the Beast King immediately said to Ji Tianqing and Yan Tianqing, Yan Prince Zhongli found Huiyan early this morning. Huiyan was hiding in a deserted house in the city. Prince Zhongli did not immediately take action. He first sent a message to this old man and asked me to inform you. However, Huiyan was very cunning. He seemed to have sensed that something was wrong and wanted to escape. Left with no choice, Prince Zhongli could only bring 2 fire generals to chase after him. Huiyan is fleeing towards the west side of the city. He might be fleeing out of Central Continent City. You should hurry and chase after him, you might be able to catch up. Ji Tianqing and Yan didn't waste any time. They immediately left the Cool Breeze Courtyard and rushed to the West City Gate as fast as they could. Of course, before the journey, Ji Tianqing used a secret technique to change his appearance. As he hurried along, he looked down at the city from the sky and observed the situation in the city. He used his spiritual sense to detect the aura of Prince Zhongli and the others. Half an hour later, the two of them arrived at the West Gate, but they did not see Prince Zhongli, Huiyan, and the others. "I wonder if they have left the city?" Ji Tianqing murmured doubtfully as he looked around. Yan suddenly discovered something and quickly walked to the wall in the corner of the city gate. In that inconspicuous dark corner, there was a dark red mark half the size of a palm. The imprint looked simple and crude. It was neither a word nor an image. But when Yan saw the imprint clearly, she revealed a gratified smile. "Senior brother Tianqing, this is the imprint that third imperial uncle left for us. They have left the city and are rushing towards the west." Ji Tianqing nodded and hurriedly took Yan across the west gate and flew towards the mountains in the western suburbs. Along the way, the two of them could find the imprint left behind by Prince Zhongli in the mountains every few dozen miles. In addition, there were many traces of fighting along the way. Ji Tianqing followed the instructions of the imprint and kept flying towards the west. They gradually left the western suburbs of Central Continent City and entered the vast mountains. Unknowingly, 3 hours passed. It was noon and the sun was scorching high in the sky. At this time, Ji Tianqing and Yan were flying in a vast and deep mountain range. This place was thousands of miles away from central continent city. It was a primeval forest where few people would go. Suddenly, Ji Tianqing saw a dark red flame rising in the sky hundreds of miles ahead. He could faintly hear a muffled rumbling sound. He immediately concluded that there must be Sky Origin stage powerhouses fighting in that area. It should be there. Let's go. Ji Tianqing's eyes lit up. He hurriedly sped up with Yan. When the two of them crossed hundreds of miles of mountains and arrived at the sky above a deep valley, they saw 5 figures fighting fiercely in the sky. There were 3 people on one side. It was Prince Zhongli and 2 fire generals. They were besieging 2 Sky Origin stage powerhouses. One of them was an old cripple in a black robe who was missing an arm or a leg. The other was a middle-aged man who was as big as a bear and looked honest. There was no doubt that the old cripple in the black robe was Huiyan. The middle-aged man with the honest face was from the Wild Mountain tribe, who were known for their loyalty and strength. He seemed to be Huiyan's guard. The man from the Wild Mountain tribe was at Sky Origin stage level 3. He was fighting against the 2 fire generals alone and was not at a disadvantage at all. The 2 fire generals were fierce generals who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Their aura was strong and murderous. Even though they were covered in blood and wounds, they still held their sabers in their hands and fought without caring about anything else. The man from the Wild Mountain tribe was also covered in wounds and blood. He was also aggressive. He was holding a long black spear that was 6 feet long and as thick as a wooden pillar. He was using his excellent spear art to block the attacks of the 2 fire generals. The 3 of them were fighting above the valley. Their true essences were splashing in all directions and making loud rumbling sounds. Not far away, Prince Zhongli was fighting against Huiyan in the sky above the mountains. Prince Zhongli was only at Sky Origin stage level 4. However, with a pair of spiritual fire-heavy swords, he was able to perform the godly fire sword art. The sky was filled with flames. Huiyan was holding a red saber in his hand. Around him was a 9-flame spiritual snake that was shining in 9 colors. He was fighting against Prince Zhongli. He was stronger than Prince Zhongli. With the protection of the spiritual snake, he was able to suppress Prince Zhongli and beat him back. The 5 Sky Origin stage cultivators were fighting in the sky. The sky was filled with true essences and was in chaos. The violent energy exploded, creating a raging hurricane in the sky. The mountains below were also hit by the shockwaves of the battle. A few mountains collapsed and cracks appeared on the mountains. Ji Tianqing could see that if he did not come to help, Prince Zhongli and the 2 fire generals would not be able to catch Huiyan. Otherwise, Huiyan and the guard from the Wild Mountain tribe would not have been able to escape Zhongzhou city and run for thousands of miles. After seeing the situation, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate anymore. He turned into a stream of light and rushed toward Huiyan. Chapter 698. Swoosh. With a flash of golden light, Ji Tianqing instantly pierced through the sky and rushed to Huiyan's side. Soaring dragon from the 9 heavens. He pulled out the black dragon sword and slashed out a 30-meter-long ice-blue divine dragon toward Huiyan. Huiyan was fighting with Prince Zhongli and was caught off guard by the sudden attack. When he sensed the icy divine dragon coming, his face changed and his eyes were filled with anxiety and anger. Bam! With a muffled sound, Huiyan could not dodge in time and was hit by the icy divine dragon, flying backward. However, he had the 9-flame spiritual snake to protect him and blocked most of the power of the icy divine dragon. The frost divine dragon shattered with a bang, turning into millions of ice crystal fragments that rained down from the sky like hailstones. The 9-flame spiritual snake also circled around and roared angrily. The flames on its body flickered. Huo Yan retreated 1,000 meters away and stood high in the sky. He spat out a mouthful of blood and panted heavily. He looked at Ji Tianqing gloomily. When he saw Ji Tianqing's appearance, he was stunned. Although Ji Tianqing had changed his appearance, he still felt a sense of déjà vu. Moreover, Ji Tianqing's aura and sword moves were still fresh in his memory. Huo Yan frowned and thought for a moment. He immediately guessed Ji Tianqing's identity. "It's you. The little bastard who sneaked into Dark City to assassinate me and destroy the Dark Shadow Palace?" Ji Tianqing's identity was exposed and he did not hide anymore. He used his power to restore his appearance. Prince Zhongli stopped and looked at Ji Tianqing with relief. He cupped his hands and said, "Territorial Master, you came at the right time." Ji Tianqing nodded at him as a greeting. Huo Yan finally confirmed Ji Tianqing's identity. He stared at him with hatred and roared with murderous intent, "Ji! God! Great! It's really you, you bastard!" Ji Tianqing was not angry at all. He looked at Huo Yan with a sneer and said coldly, "Huo Yan, I let you escape last time in the underground city. Let's see how you can escape today. No matter how capable you are, you won't be able to escape today. Surrender." Last time in the underground city, he was not strong enough and let Huo Yan escape. Today, he was at the 5th level of the Sky Origin stage. And here is a vast mountain range. The terrain is not as complicated as the underground Ansheng. No matter what, it was impossible for Huo Yan to escape. Huo Yan narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Ji Tianqing, this is between me and the fire race. What right do you have to interfere?" Ji Tianqing was momentarily stunned when he heard these words. Soon after, he sneered and said, "Ha ha ha, Huo Yan, what's the point of saying all this now? What? You know you have nowhere to run, so you want to negotiate with me? No need. Yan is my junior brother. Since you dare to go against him, you have to bear my anger." Huo Yan's thoughts were exposed and he was furious. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Ji Tianqing! You will die a horrible death. The one who will die a horrible death is you." Ji Tianqing retorted and did not talk nonsense with him anymore. He immediately waved his sword and slashed out a giant sword that was hundreds of meters long. Water split. The giant golden sword was extremely powerful. It carried the power to destroy everything and slashed at Huo Yan. Huo Yan's face immediately changed. He held the crimson sword in his right hand and fought back with all his strength. He slashed out 6 flaming sword lights. Furious blade. The 6 saber lights that were tens of meters long collided with the huge sword that was hundreds of meters long. Immediately, there was an earth-shattering boom. The dark sky was immediately illuminated by the flaming sword lights. It was like the red clouds at sunset. The power of the giant golden sword was unparalleled. It shattered the 6 flaming saber lights on the spot, turning them into thousands of dark red fragments that scattered in all directions. The giant golden sword's power was not reduced at all. It continued to slash at Huo Yan. Huo Yan looked fearful. He immediately released his true core strength and poured it into the 9-flame spiritual snake to block the sword lights. Spiritual snake protection. As he shouted, the 9-flame spiritual snake's body suddenly doubled in size. It burst out with more dazzling 9-colored flames. The 100-meter-long 9-flame spiritual serpent circled around Huo Yan, protecting him tightly. Boom! In the next moment, the giant golden sword hit the 9-flame spiritual snake and sent Huo Yan flying again. The 9-flame spiritual snake's power had weakened a lot. Huo Yan's aura was also getting weaker and his combat strength was decreasing. He flew back 1,000 meters before he could steady himself. His face became even more ghastly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Prince Zhongli also attacked without hesitation. He waved his two swords and slashed out towering flames. Ji Tianqing forced Huiyan to retreat in one move, and did not give him a chance to catch his breath. He immediately chased after him, brandishing his sword and using the 5 extremes of heavenly movement. Metal Slash. He activated his powerful true core strength and instantly drew out the metal elemental spiritual qi in a 10-mile radius. He condensed it into a giant golden sword and slashed at Huiyan. On the surface, this slash of the Golden Emperor was not much different from water flow severance. However, the metal slash was formed by the purest metal elemental spiritual qi. It was extremely sharp and powerful. Furthermore, the metal slash was an upper-level cultivation skill of the Heaven Origin stage. It was more than twice as powerful as the water split. Just as Huiyan was blocking Prince Zhongli's attack, the gigantic golden sword that seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth came crashing down. Boom! At this critical moment, Huiyan's face changed drastically. His eyes were filled with terror. However, no matter how hard he tried to retreat, he still could not dodge the attack. Kaboom! The dazzling giant golden sword instantly engulfed his body and hit the 9-flame spiritual snake. Huiyan had activated the 9-flame spiritual snake's power to the maximum and its defensive power had reached its limit. However, under the invincible Metal Emperor slash, the 9-flame spiritual snake was slashed open on the spot, and the 9-colored spiritual fire that covered the sky and earth burst out. Hiss! 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 The 9-flame spiritual snake was like a living creature. It hissed in pain and its body twisted violently. Although it was not cut in half, there were cracks all over its body. Large amounts of flames kept leaking out and its power was quickly draining away. Huiyan was killed by the giant sword and fell from the sky. He crashed into the valley below. With a loud bang, the valley filled with towering trees was smashed into a 1,000-meter-wide crater on the spot. There were many gullies around the deep hole. Mud and powder were flying up into the sky. The loud noise reverberated throughout the valley. The entire valley and the surrounding mountain peaks shook violently from the impact. Huiyan was lying at the bottom of the 1,000-meter deep hole. He was buried by a pile of mud. His entire body was drenched in blood, his spirit was dispirited, and his eyes were dim and lifeless. The slash had almost cut the 9-flame spiritual snake into pieces. It had also severely injured him. His internal organs were all shattered. Chapter 699. Ji Tianqing and Prince Zhongli stopped fighting for the time being. The two of them stood above the canyon, looking down at the deep pit and Huiyan at the bottom of the pit. When Prince Zhongli saw that Huiyan was covered in blood and his aura was extremely weak, he was shocked. He turned to look at Ji Tianqing and felt that it was unbelievable. Before this, he and Huiyan had exchanged a few hundred moves, but he couldn't do anything to Huiyan. They could only fight until both of them were injured. However, Ji Tianqing came and heavily injured Huiyan with just 2 moves. His strength was extremely weak. This was unbelievable. Just now, that sword strike that could split heaven and earth apart, its power was truly terrifying beyond compare, causing Prince Zhongli to be rather shocked. He couldn't believe that Ji Tianqing and Huiyan were both at Sky Origin Stage 5. How could there be such a huge gap between them? Thinking of this, Prince Zhongli was full of admiration. He said to Ji Tianqing, "No wonder the zone leader could become the #1 peerless genius of the human race. I will remember that sword move for the rest of my life." Ji Tianqing only smiled and nodded at Prince Zhongli's praise. He didn't say anything. Prince Zhongli only saw him injuring Huiyan with 1 move, but he didn't know that Huiyan didn't use his full strength or his trump card. If he used the Burning Sky Palm and Sword of Judgment, he would be able to kill Huiyan in 1 move. However, Huiyan was an abandoned person of the Fire tribe. He couldn't be killed yet. He had to be handed over to Prince Zhongli. Therefore, Ji Tianqing used the black dragon sword and used the golden emperor slash. At the same time, the two fire generals were still fighting with the man from the Wild Mountain tribe. The man from the Wild Mountain tribe was shocked and he saw Hui Yan being slashed into the ground. Anger and anxiety filled his eyes. "Ah! You bastard, I'll kill you." The man from the Wild Mountain tribe was loyal to Hui Yan. Seeing that Hui Yan was heavily injured, he was naturally enraged. He waved his spear recklessly and charged towards Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing turned his head and glanced at him. His tone was cold as he shouted, "You're courting death." As he spoke, he raised the black dragon sword and slashed at the man from the barbarian Yu clan. Scarlet Dragon Flash. A 50-meter-long flaming sword instantly pierced through the sky and arrived in front of the man from the Wild Yu tribe. The man suddenly turned pale with fright. He hurriedly brandished his long spear, sweeping out a shocking spear shadow in an attempt to block the giant sword's attack. Pang pang pang. With a series of muffled sounds, the spear shadows that filled the sky were smashed into pieces by the giant sword. In the next moment, the huge flaming sword struck the man from the barbarian mountain clan. Boom! His true essence shield instantly collapsed, and his body was blasted to pieces, turning into minced meat that splashed out in all directions. The power of the fiery sword didn't diminish. It flew for another 10 miles and smashed into 1,000 zhang tall mountain. With a loud rumble, the 10,000 feet tall mountain collapsed on the spot. Everything above the mountainside was completely shattered. Endless smoke and dust rose into the sky. The entire mountain shook violently for a long time before it gradually calmed down. The man from the barbarian mountain clan was killed by Ji Tianqing with a casual strike. Prince Zhongli and the two fire generals watched with trepidation. Their hearts were filled with astonishment. Especially the two fire generals. They fought with the man from the barbarian mountain clan for a long time, but they couldn't gain the upper hand. However, Ji Tianqing killed the man from the barbarian mountain clan with a casual strike. How terrifying was his strength! Prince Zhongli had a deeper understanding of Ji Tianqing's strength. He thought to himself, Yan actually has such a powerful senior brother who is so protective of him. It's really his blessing. When I return to the Fire Tribe, I must have a good talk with the Fire Emperor to let Yan follow his senior brother so that he can achieve greater things. At this moment, Ji Tianqing descended from the sky and flew into the valley. He landed in the deep pit that was 1,000 meters wide. He used his true essence to form a giant hand and grabbed at Hui Yan. Hui Yan had just climbed out of the ruins and was about to escape with the help of the 9-flame spiritual snake. Suddenly, he saw a giant golden hand grabbing at him. He was shocked and his eyes were filled with fear. At this critical moment, he desperately activated the remaining true essence in his body. He flapped his wings and flew into the sky in a futile attempt to escape. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "You still want to escape? I've said that you won't be able to escape today." He brazenly used 100% of his strength to increase the size of the giant golden hand by a few times. Its speed also increased by 2 times. Swoosh! The giant golden hand streaked across the sky and caught Hui Yan, who was desperately trying to escape, in the palm of its hand. The 9-flame spiritual snake was twisted and deformed by the giant golden hand. Hui Yan's face was also pale. He was sweating profusely and was in extreme pain. In the blink of an eye, the giant golden hand grabbed Hui Yan and flew back in front of Ji Tianqing. Hui Yan was caught by the giant golden hand. Only his head was exposed as he struggled desperately. Ji Tianqing. "You bastard, this old man and you are irreconcilable. If you dare to kill me, the Duanmu family will never let you off. Just wash your neck and wait for death." Ji Tianqing stared at him coldly and said expressionlessly, "Humph. You might be able to use the Duanmu family to threaten others." "Using the Duanmu family to threaten me? Are you out of your mind?" As he said that, he flicked his left hand and shot out a dazzling golden sword light. It stabbed fiercely into Huiyan's dantian. With a muffled bang, Huiyan's dantian was crushed on the spot. Majestic true essence leaked out and quickly dissipated. Huiyan let out a shrill scream as his life's cultivation quickly dissipated. His entire person was like a rotten eggplant. Very quickly, he shriveled up and became an old lunatic who was on the verge of death. Clearly, Huiyan's life's cultivation was crippled. Even if he was still alive, he would not be able to stir up trouble again. Prince Zhongli and Yan hurried over with 2 fire generals. Seeing that Huiyan's cultivation was crippled, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Prince Zhongli cupped his hands and bowed. He said solemnly, "Master, thank you for your help. Our fire tribe will remember this favor. It's good that you have crippled Huiyan. You have solved our clan's greatest problem, and it's also convenient for us to take him back for trial. The 9-flame spiritual snake is our fire tribe's spiritual vein, but it has merged with him. We will take him back to the fire tribe and let the fire emperor strip the 9-flame spiritual snake and restore it to the 9-flame spiritual vein." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said calmly, "No need to thank me. I am helping Yan. However, I want to interrogate Huiyan first. What is his relationship with the Duanmu family? After I am done with the interrogation, I will hand him over to you." Prince Zhongli naturally had no objections. He nodded and made a gesture of invitation. Chapter 700. Huiyan's cultivation had been completely depleted, and he was as weak as an ordinary person. He no longer had any strength to resist. His body had shrunk into a ball, and his expression was filled with despair. His eyes were filled with a deathly gray, and he no longer had anything to live for. Hearing Ji Tianqing's question, he laughed coldly in a hoarse voice. "I'm no different from a dead man. Why would I tell you the inside story?" Ji Tianqing had long expected that he would have such a reaction. He was neither angry nor anxious. He said slowly, "That's right. Your current fate is no different from a dead man. But you should know that sometimes death is not scary. Living is more painful. Coincidentally, I've heard of some torture methods and was worried that I wouldn't be able to use them. Today, I'll use you to practice." As he spoke, he stretched out his right index finger and flicked a wisp of dark golden sword qi into Huiyan's body. That wisp of fierce and domineering sword qi immediately swam in Huiyan's meridians, bursting with violent and sharp sword qi. Huiyan's meridians were shattered inch by the sword qi and turned into powder. The pain of his meridians being shattered caused Huiyan's body to convulse. Blood foam kept flowing out of his 7 orifices, and he opened his mouth to let out an incomparably shrill scream. He clenched his teeth and held on for a while. Then, he could no longer bear the extreme pain and immediately begged for mercy. "Stop. Stop it. Ji Tianqing. I'll tell you everything." Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and withdrew that wisp of sword qi. He glanced at Huiyan and said in a contemptuous tone, "Ha, I thought you were tough. You can't even bear this little bit of pain. How disappointing." Back then, when he cultivated the sword Heart Dao, the sword qi also swam in his meridians. Recently, when he cultivated in the heavenly spirit heavy array, he also had to endure the same pain. But he endured it with amazing perseverance. That was why he was able to cultivate the sword Heart Dao and improve his strength rapidly. And Huiyan was only destroyed by the sword qi for a moment before he was tortured to the point of collapse. He hurriedly begged for mercy. From this, it could be seen that Ji Tianqing could grow so quickly. It was natural for him to be called the #1 prodigy of the human race. After that, Hui Yan no longer dared to hide anything and revealed his relationship with the Duanmu clan. Ji Tianqing, Yan Er, and the others finished listening. Only then did they come to a realization, understanding the whole story. It turned out that the second madam of Duanmu Huang was just a young lady from a small family, and by chance, she recognized Hui Yan as her adoptive father. Hui Yan wanted to settle down in the central state, and he wanted to use the Duanmu family's medical methods to recover his left arm and right leg. Therefore, Hui Yan used all means and schemes to help second madam marry into the Duanmu family and become Duanmu Huang's concubine. The second madam was also an ambitious and scheming person. She had been in the Duanmu family for more than 20 years, and she had gone from being a concubine to a co-wife step by step. In the end, she had become the honorable second madam. Hui Yan also benefited from this. Through his relationship with the second madam, he could use the Duanmu family's power. Originally, Hui Yan had been tortured by the fire race. He had lost his left arm, right leg, and half of his blood. His power would rapidly weaken, and his left arm and right leg would not be able to recover. However, with the help of the Duanmu family, he had managed to survive until now, and his strength had stabilized at the 5th level of the Sky Origin stage. He even had a chance to recover his crippled body. A few months ago, Hui Yan found out that the Fire Emperor had a son called Yan through the Duanmu family's soul-herding hall, and he had come to Central State City. Therefore, he wanted to capture Yan Er and use him to threaten the Fire Emperor to take revenge on the entire fire race. When the second madam contacted him for help, he made this request to the second madam. It was because of this that Yan Er was captured, and Ji Tianqing broke into the underground city to rescue him. Now that the truth was out, Ji Tianqing did not say anything more, and threw Hui Yan to Prince Zhongli. "I have finished the interrogation. Hui Yan will be handed over to you." Prince Zhongli asked 2 fire generals to hold Hui Yan. He bowed to Ji Tianqing and said with a sincere expression, "Domain Lord, thank you again for your help. Later, I will take Hui Yan back to the fire race. Before I came, the Fire Emperor had told me to let Yan Er return to the fire race for an important matter. Domain Lord, this matter should not be delayed, we will take our leave now." Yan Er also looked at Ji Tianqing with reluctance. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior brother Tianqing, I will go back to the fire race with third uncle. You are alone in Central State, you must be careful. Don't worry, after my matter is settled, I will come back to find you as soon as possible." Ji Tianqing smiled, patted his head, and said, "Yan, you have been away from the fire race for too long, it is time to go back and see your parents. We will part here, you all take care." Ji Tianqing waved goodbye to everyone, watching Prince Zhongli, Yan Er, and the others fly across the sky, flying south as fast as lightning. When everyone's figures disappeared into the sky, he withdrew his gaze, changed his appearance, and returned to Central State City. He rode on Xianyu, flying in the sky at a leisurely pace, muttering silently in his heart. Ku is cultivating in the monster race imperial court and will not be back for 3 to 5 months. Yan Er also went back to the fire race, at least 3 to 5 months. Only Qianyu and Little Black Dragon are left to accompany me, sigh. It seems that I have to go back to the monarch mansion and cultivate in seclusion for a while. Ji Tianqing made up his mind. After going back, he had nothing to do, so he continued to cultivate in seclusion, striving to cultivate the ultimate sword body as soon as possible. Unknowingly, he had flown 400 miles and crossed dozens of mountain ranges. He was still 600 miles away from Central State City, flying above a dark green primitive forest. Suddenly, in the empty sky in front of him, the air fluctuated violently. In the next moment, a thin and tall figure in a purple robe appeared out of thin air in the sky. Swish! It was a tall man in a purple robe with a cold and dignified aura, wearing a bronze devil mask on his face. Under the mask, a pair of eyes as deep as the starry sky was revealed, glowing with a cold light, staring at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing suddenly saw the purple-robed man appear, immediately frowned, his pupils shrank, and his eyes became serious. He appeared out of thin air. What kind of method is this? Could it be that he teleported from afar? He whispered in his heart, very vigilant and wary of the purple-robed man. This was because he knew very well that although Sky Origin Realm experts could fly in the sky as fast as flowing light, it was impossible for them to teleport. It was said that only transcendent experts in the soul-refining realm could teleport 10 miles in an instant with the help of soul-level magic treasures. Ji Tianqing guessed that the purple-robed man who suddenly appeared was very likely to be a soul-refining realm expert. The other party came with ill intentions. His body was filled with coldness and a trace of killing intent. Swish! Ji Tianqing stopped, standing 1,000 meters away from the purple-robed man in the sky. The purple-robed man stared at him and spoke in a cold and deep voice. Ji Tianqing. This seat has been waiting for you for a long time. Chapter 701. The purple-robed man's voice was deep and forceful. It contained an unquestionable domineering aura and an invisible soul-suppressing sound. Ji Tianqing was 1,000 meters away from him. Just by hearing his voice, he felt his entire body turn cold and a strong sense of fear appeared in his soul. His expression suddenly changed and his eyes revealed a strong sense of vigilance. Soul Refinement Realm Expert? He knew very well that only experts in the soul refinement realm were able to use invisible soul energy to kill their opponents. Sure enough, the purple-robed man secretly circulated his energy and a blazing white light immediately lit up behind him. It condensed into 5 balls of white light, like 5 giant eyeballs. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing's body shook and his expression became very ugly. Divine soul white light condensing into 5 Dharma eyes? This is a 5th-level soul refinement realm expert. He had read some martial arts history books in the Emperor King manner before and had some understanding of soul refinement realm experts. He knew that when a martial artist broke through heaven origin and reached the soul refinement realm, besides controlling heaven and earth spirit energy, they could also use divine soul power. The most obvious sign of a soul refinement realm expert was the white light that appeared from their divine soul power. They could condense divine soul Dharma eyes. A first-level soul refinement realm expert could only condense 1 divine soul Dharma eye. A second-level soul refinement realm expert could condense 2 divine soul Dharma eyes. A third-level soul refinement realm expert could condense 3 divine soul Dharma eyes, and so on. The purple-robed man could actually condense 5 divine soul Dharma eyes. He was clearly a 5th-level soul refinement realm expert. Damn it! How could a 5th-level soul refinement realm expert appear? And looking at his posture, it's obvious that he has been planning for a long time to assassinate me. Who is he? Ji Tianqing stared at the purple-robed man and silently guessed in his heart. At this moment, the purple-robed man sneered and said, Ji Tianqing, Ji Tianqing, if you had always holed up in the Emperor King manner, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. But I already expected that you would leave the Emperor King manor sooner or later. I didn't expect that not only did you leave the Emperor King manor, you even left Central State City. You personally gave me such a good opportunity, so how could I let you down? Today, I'll tear you into 1,000 pieces, grind your bones to dust, and make you pay with your blood. Hearing his words, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and thought, pay with blood? Could he be from the Duanmu family? As he thought of this, he vaguely had an answer in his heart. He looked coldly at the purple-robed man and asked in a deep voice, You are Duanmu Huang? The purple-robed man was wearing a mask, so no one could see the change in his expression. His eyes were as cold as ice. His entire body emitted a murderous aura as he sneered, So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Of the divine soul Dharma heart. You. Of soul soul of bones bones of the soul of. As soon as his voice fell, the purple-robed man decisively waved his right hand. With a wave of his sleeve, an overwhelming five-colored spiritual light shot out. Shwa! The five-colored light that blotted out the sky condensed into a giant five-colored blade that was 1,000 meters long and slashed down toward Ji Tianqing's head. Moreover, the five divine soul Dharma eyes behind the purple-robed man also released an invisible divine soul power that sealed off an area of 20 miles. A five-colored curtain of light appeared, enveloping the entire area within 20 miles, forming an isolated domain. Within this domain, the purple-robed man was the absolute ruler. He controlled the power of heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing was suppressed by an invisible force, as if he had fallen into a quagmire, unable to move at all. He could only watch as the enormous five-colored blade slashed down at him with the power to destroy everything in its path. At the moment of life and death, he closed his golden wings without hesitation to protect himself. In the next moment, the heaven-splitting blade slashed down and struck the golden wings. Boom! With a deafening explosion, Ji Tianqing's figure was engulfed by the five-colored spirit light. The heaven-splitting blade wrapped around him and fell straight down from the sky, slashing into the mountain range below. With a loud rumble, the towering mountain range, which was hundreds of miles long, was instantly shattered into pieces by the heaven-splitting blade. The mountain range collapsed, and several peaks collapsed. The ground within a radius of dozens of miles shook and jumped, stirring up smoke and dust. When the smoke and dust dissipated, heaven and earth regained its clarity. The lush towering mountain range had been turned into a wasteland. In the wasteland, there was a wide gully that was like an abyss. At the bottom of the abyss, among the rubble and ruins, there was a faint golden light that flickered dimly. After a while, the golden light struggled a few times and shook off the surrounding soil and rocks. Then, a figure slowly climbed out of the ruins and stood on the mound of soil with stumbling steps. It was Ji Tianqing. He looked very haggard. His body was covered in soil and there were a few streaks of red blood. His face was pale, and blood kept flowing out of his nose and mouth. The golden wings drooped weakly behind him, and the light was very dim. Obviously, the golden wings had helped him block the heaven-splitting blade, but they had used up all their strength and could no longer protect him. Although he was lucky not to die, his internal organs had been damaged and he had suffered serious internal injuries. His true essence was quickly flowing away. Is this the strength of a soul refinement realm cultivator? Even if I use the Kenshin battle robe, I will not be able to block his attack. The difference of a realm is indeed huge. I have no right or chance to fight back. Ji Tianqing looked up at the purple-robed man in the sky. His heart was filled with grief and indignation. The purple-robed man stood high in the sky and looked down at the abyss below. He saw the haggard and heavily injured Ji Tianqing. He frowned, and a look of astonishment flashed across his eyes. This little bastard took a hit from my sword and was not killed? The purple-robed man was shocked. He couldn't believe his eyes. He was a powerful cultivator at the 5th level of the soul refinement realm, while Ji Tianqing was only at the 5th level of the sky origin stage. He was clearly a realm higher than Ji Tianqing, and he could kill Ji Tianqing with a casual slap. However, Ji Tianqing was still alive, and his body was unharmed. He didn't lose any limbs. How could he not be surprised? Soon, the purple-robed man came back to his senses. He stared at Ji Tianqing in the abyss and shouted angrily, "Little bastard, even if you have a treasure to protect you, you can block my sword. But this time, I will turn you into ashes and you will die without a burial place." As he spoke, the purple-robed man stretched out his wide left hand and slammed it towards Ji Tianqing in the abyss. Falling star palm. Suddenly, a huge silver palm with a radius of 100 meters appeared. It carried the power to destroy the heaven and earth as it slammed towards Ji Tianqing. The huge silver palm was like a falling meteor. It pierced through the sky and slashed towards Ji Tianqing's head. Chapter 702. The difference in strength between Ji Tianqing and the purple-robed man was too great. When the fallen star palm fell from the sky, he did not hesitate to use his strongest defensive trump card. Swoosh! A golden light flashed in his palm, and a golden seal appeared. It was the seal of mountains and rivers. He desperately activated his true core energy and poured it into the seal of mountains and rivers. The golden seal suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light and a sacred and majestic aura. In an instant, the seal of mountains and rivers grew to the size of a house. It was 5 meters tall and 6 meters wide. Under Ji Tianqing's control, the mountain and river pattern on the side of the golden seal opened, and he immediately went in. Almost at the same time, the fallen star palm hit the seal of mountains and rivers hard. Boom! In the deafening sound, the seal of mountains and rivers was hit by a destructive force. It shone with a dazzling golden light and crashed into the ground. This was the ruins at the bottom of the abyss. The ground was broken and filled with debris. The violent force exploded, and a deep pit with a radius of 1,000 meters appeared on the ground. Dust and gravel flew everywhere. The abyss-like ravine also collapsed on the spot, forming a huge pit with a radius of 10 miles. It was like a giant bowl. Endless clouds of dust covered the sky, and loud rumbling noises reverberated between heaven and earth, lasting for a long time. The area that was enveloped by the 5-colored light curtain fell into complete chaos and violence. Except for the purple-robed man, almost no one could survive in this area. They would be smashed into pieces in an instant by the terrifying force and hurricane. In the deepest part of the huge pit, a dazzling golden light could be vaguely seen. It was buried in endless dust, but it still emitted a dazzling golden light. After a long time, when the earth-shattering sound and the dust in the sky dissipated, the golden light shook off the dust and flew into the air. Swoosh! The golden light flashed, and the house-sized seal of mountains and rivers flew into the sky. It stopped 10 miles away from the purple-robed man. The seal of mountains and rivers looked unscathed. There was no scar on its surface. The light was still dazzling, and the aura was still sacred and majestic. After all, this magic treasure was a soul-grade magic treasure personally refined by an imperial monarch, so how could it be destroyed so easily? The purple-robed man stood in the sky, frowning as he looked at the intact seal of mountains and rivers. His expression became increasingly gloomy. His eyes flickered with a cold light as he cursed in a low voice, "Damnable little bastard, you actually used the Region Lord's golden seal to block my meteor palm." The purple-robed man had a high status and authority. Of course, he had seen the Domain Lord's golden seal before. He also knew that every Domain Lord's golden seal was a soul-grade magic treasure with very strong defensive capabilities. However, the Domain Master's golden seal was mainly used as a token and not a powerful magic treasure. He was confident that he would be able to break the seal within 3 moves. Even if Ji Tianqing was hiding in the golden seal, he could still tear Ji Tianqing into pieces. There was a space in the seal of mountains and rivers that looked like a secret chamber with a radius of 4 meters. Ji Tianqing was sitting cross-legged in the secret chamber. He took out a few spirit pills and swallowed them, hurriedly circulating his energy to suppress his injuries. While he was healing his injuries, his heart was filled with anxiety. He was thinking to himself, although the seal of mountains and rivers blocked the meteor palm, I am fine for now. However, the imperial tutor said that this seal of mountains and rivers can only help me block 3 fatal attacks from a soul-tempering stage powerhouse. The meteor palm just now has already weakened the power of the seal of mountains and rivers. The seal of mountains and rivers can at most block 2 more attacks before it can no longer protect me. At that time, I will definitely die. No, I have to think of another way to save my life. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he remembered that Yun Zhongqi had given him a magic cloud token when he had discussed cooperation with him at Cloud Soul Palace. At that time, Yun Zhongqi had said that he could use the magic cloud token to mobilize the Yun family's forces and the hidden cloud pavilion. Moreover, when he was in danger that he could not resolve, he could use the magic cloud token to send a message, and Yun Zhongqi would save him once. Although Uncle Yun might expose his identity by saving me and let the Duanmu family know about my relationship with Cloud Soul Palace, my life is in danger. I can't care about that much now. At that thought, Ji Tianqing quickly took out the magic cloud token from his infinite space ring. He left the secret room in the Seal of Mountains and Rivers and stood on the golden seal. He activated the majestic true core in his body and infused it into the magic cloud token. Swoosh! The magic cloud token immediately lit up with a dazzling glow. It turned into a stream of light that was as sharp as a sword and flew into the sky. The purple-robed man had been staring at the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. When he saw Ji Tianqing suddenly appear and release a signal arrow, he immediately sneered with disdain. What? You little bastard, you know that you are going to die, and you still want to send a message for help? Ha ha ha. Everything within a 20-mile radius has been sealed by my divine soul Dharma Eye. This is my divine soul territory. This area is under my control. Don't even think about sending a signal out. Even the heavens can't save you. The purple-robed man's tone was very confident and domineering. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the stream of light transformed from the magic cloud token pierced through the five-colored sky with a whoosh and disappeared without a trace. The purple-robed man's face stiffened. A hint of anger flashed in his eyes. Bastard! Did you use a Dharma treasure to send a signal just now? Only a special soul-level Dharma treasure could pass through his divine soul territory. He immediately realized that Ji Tianqing must have sent a signal to ask for help from a soul-tempering realm powerhouse. Ji Tianqing was relieved when he saw that the magic cloud token had successfully passed through the five-colored sky. He looked at the purple-robed man and said with a playful smile, "You must be very curious to know who I sent a signal to." "Who?" The purple-robed man asked subconsciously, "A demon king? Or a powerhouse from the imperial court?" Ji Tianqing's smile became more playful. He said with a smile, "If you take off your mask, I will tell you the answer." The purple-robed man immediately frowned and sneered contemptuously, "Humph. You little bastard, you still want to negotiate with me? Wishful thinking. No matter who you ask for help, I can kill you in an instant." Ji Tianqing also understood this point. Of course, he was nervous and worried in his heart. However, he did not show it on his face and still looked fearless. He sneered and said, "It doesn't matter if you don't take off your mask. Anyway, I have already guessed your identity. Do you want to know why I dared to kill Duanmu Yulong in front of everyone and destroy the 3 herb gardens?" Hearing this, the purple-robed man's body suddenly trembled. His eyes were filled with anger and were dyed with a layer of blood. He originally wanted to kill Ji Tianqing as soon as possible to take revenge. However, he forcefully suppressed his anger and temporarily suppressed his killing intent. He did not make a move. Obviously, this question poked at his heart and aroused his anger. He was also eager to know the answer. The purple-robed man's whole body was filled with dark red killing intent. He stared at Ji Tianqing and asked in a deep voice, "Speak. Who ordered you to do this?" Chapter 703. The purple-robed man was waiting for Ji Tianqing to give his answer, but he did not expect him to suddenly say such a thing. The purple-robed man was instantly enraged and shouted with murderous intent, "Ji Tianqing! Don't keep me in suspense. If you know what's good for you, tell me obediently. Otherwise, when I catch you, I'll torture you and make you suffer all kinds of pain." Ji Tianqing pretended to be afraid and quickly waved his hand, "All right, I know that you're cruel and merciless. I'll tell you. The reason why I can rise so quickly and dare to wage war against the Duanmu family is because I have a powerful backer. To tell you the truth, I have a deep relationship with the Fei imperial court and I have a deep relationship with the Murong family. If you don't want the Duanmu family to be doomed, you'd better let me go immediately. Otherwise, the Fei imperial court and the Murong family will avenge me and completely destroy the Duanmu family. Hearing his words, the purple-robed man's body trembled and his eyes shone brightly. What? Your backers are the Fei imperial court and the Murong family? The purple-robed man immediately concluded that Ji Tianqing's words were half true and half false. He could not believe it. The Fei imperial court might be his backer, but the Murong family was definitely not. The purple-robed man could see that Ji Tianqing was deliberately lying and immediately shouted angrily, "Bullshit! You're spouting nonsense. How could the Murong family go against the Duanmu family? Such a clumsy attempt to sow discord. Do you think I'm as stupid as you?" Ji Tianqing's expression was still calm and revealed an "I knew it" expression. He spread his hands and said, "Hee, I've already told you. You wouldn't believe me even if I told you. You must think that the Murong family is the Duanmu family's ally and that they're sincerely cooperating with the Duanmu family. Hee, if things are really that simple, you've underestimated the Murong family too much. In this world, the most terrifying enemies are those who hide in the dark and can't be seen. Duanmu Huang, that's all I have to say. You're on your own now." The purple-robed man immediately fell silent. His eyes kept changing and a look of doubt flashed across his eyes. Although Ji Tianqing's words sounded ridiculous, he instinctively did not believe them. However, he has a suspicious personality. Moreover, the Duanmu family has recently encountered a great change, while the Murong family is calm and peaceful. He couldn't help but suspect that the Murong family was really disloyal. Ji Tianqing couldn't help sneering inwardly when he saw the purple-robed man remaining silent and contemplating. Hee, Duanmu Huang, that old fox, even if he doesn't believe my words, he will definitely be suspicious and guard against the Murong family. Humph. Do you think my words are half true and half false? It's all fake. At this moment, the purple-robed man came back to his senses and shouted coldly, "Ji Tianqing, you little bastard, you're really treacherous. Do you think you can stall for time and wait for reinforcements to arrive? I definitely won't fall for it. I'll tear you to shreds right now." After saying that, the purple-robed man waved his palms and formed a mysterious seal. He displayed a mysterious and powerful soul secret technique. He used the secret technique to control the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and gathered the power of his soul territory. He immediately condensed 2 giant 5-colored dragons that were 1,000 meters long. Moreover, the 5 soul Dharma eyes also released a dazzling white light, which condensed into 9 white light pillars. Heaven and Earth Tyrant Dragon. The purple-robed man shouted and waved his palms with all his might towards Ji Tianqing. Instantly, the 2 enormous 5-colored divine dragons, together with the 9 white light pillars, bombarded Ji Tianqing from all directions. Roar! The 2 5-colored dragons let out a resounding dragon roar. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they attacked, bursting forth with a destructive aura. The 9 white light pillars were as fast as the aurora. They instantly cut across 10 miles of the sky and arrived in front of Ji Tianqing. Despicable old thing, you can actually see that I'm deliberately stalling for time. Ji Tianqing's expression changed and he entered the seal of mountains and rivers without hesitation. At the same time, the 2 5-colored dragons that could destroy heaven and earth hit the seal of mountains and rivers hard. Then, the 9 white light pillars that contain terrifying soul strength also hit the seal of mountains and rivers. Bang, bang, bang. An earth-shattering explosion resounded through the sky, shaking the heavens and earth for hundreds of miles. The 2 5-colored dragons shattered on the spot, turning into light fragments that blotted out the sky and covered the entire divine soul domain. The 9 white light pillars also shattered, releasing terrifying soul strength that bombarded the seal of mountains and rivers. They wanted to kill Ji Tianqing through the seal of mountains and rivers. The soul strength was the most terrifying. It could penetrate iron walls and mountains and other objects to directly attack the soul of a person. Once Ji Tianqing's soul was destroyed, even if his physical body was unharmed, he would die instantly. However, when the emperor refined the seal of mountains and rivers, he set up a soul-level array restriction to block the soul strength attack of a soul-tempering elite. The powerful soul strength released by the 9 white light pillars was blocked and offset by the seal of mountains and rivers. It did not hurt Ji Tianqing. The seal of mountains and rivers was blown away on the spot and hit the 5-colored canopy hard, shaking the whole canopy. After a long time, the overwhelming 5-colored brilliance and the raging wind finally dissipated. The seal of mountains and rivers was still floating in the air and did not seem to have any scars or cracks. Ji Tianqing, who was hiding in the seal of mountains and rivers, was also not hurt. However, the power of the seal of mountains and rivers was greatly weakened and the golden light dimmed a lot. Ji Tianqing's expression became more and more serious. He murmured in a low voice, "It's the second move. The seal of mountains and rivers can help me block one more fatal attack, and then its power will be exhausted. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. I have to find a way to escape." He made up his mind and immediately used his spiritual sense to control the seal of mountains and rivers to hit the 5-colored canopy not far away. Bang! The seal of mountains and rivers was as heavy as a mountain. When it hit the 5-colored canopy, there was a deafening loud noise. The entire sky began to shake violently, generating waves of ripples and creaking noises. However, the 5-colored canopy was condensed by 5 soul dharma eyes after all, and its defensive power was terrifying. Even though the canopy was shaking, it was not broken and was still intact. The purple-robed man immediately showed a contemptuous look and sneered, "How ignorant you are. You are only at the sky origin stage. Even if you have a soul-level magic weapon, you can't exert much of its power. How dare you break my soul field?" Ji Tianqing kept silent, but in his mind, he was calling the sword soul, the burial of heaven, by means of soul strength. Burial of heaven. Think of a way. If we can't escape from this field, we will all be doomed. The sword soul, the burial of heaven, had been sleeping for several months. Now its strength had recovered a little. Its vigorous voice sounded in Ji Tianqing's mind soon. Only those at the soul refining stage can exert the full power of the seal of mountains and rivers and break this soul field. However, if I consume the power I have accumulated in recent months, I can give it a try. Hearing the answer from the burial of heaven, Ji Tianqing was relieved and said hurriedly, "Okay, let's try our best." After saying that, he flew out of the seal of mountains and rivers. Standing in the sky, he slowly raised his right palm. Chapter 704. Ji Tianqing roared as he unleashed all his strength, activating the black hole in his right palm. Suddenly, the black hole turned into a pitch-black vortex that blotted out the sky, and a gigantic sword shadow flew out from it. This pitch-black sword was none other than the heaven-span sword steel in Kenshin's tomb. The huge black sword exuded a cold and murderous aura as it pierced toward the 5-colored sky barrier with a mighty aura that could suppress everything. Ever since the Demon Emperor's appearance and the battle at the Sky Pillar sect, Ji Tianqing had never used the black hole in his right palm again, much less summoned the burial of heaven. Unless it was truly a matter of life and death, he would never have the burial of heaven take action. After all, the burial of heaven would be severely injured the moment it took action, and it would take a long time to recover. And this time, Ji Tianqing was being intercepted by the purple-robed man, and his life was on the line. Left with no choice, he could only use the heaven-span sword steel and use this trump card. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the giant sword slammed into the five-colored sky barrier, causing a loud explosion that shook the heavens to erupt. The incomparably strong defense of the sky barrier was actually blasted open by the giant sword, and dense cracks began to appear on the barrier. At that moment, the world was filled with a bone-chilling sword chi that could destroy the world. Even though the purple-robed man was a soul-tempering cultivator, he was still intimidated by the terrifying sword intent and aura of the massive sword. Fear appeared in his eyes. What is that? How could it have such terrifying power and aura? He couldn't understand what this thing was that even a soul-tempering cultivator like him was afraid of. Could it be a primordial spirit treasure, a supreme treasure that could be called a divine artifact? The purple-robed man was stunned for a moment, but he immediately recovered and charged at the seal of mountains and rivers to intercept Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing! You little beast, don't even think about escaping. But by the time the purple-robed man came to his senses, Ji Tianqing had already put away the heaven-span sword steel and passed through the gap in the sky curtain. Shua! He controlled the seal of mountains and rivers and rushed out of the spiritual domain. Instantly, the pressure on him was greatly reduced, and his flying speed doubled. He didn't even turn around to look at the situation behind him. He released his most boundless true essence, urging the mountain and river seal to fly through the sky, fleeing back to Central Continent City as fast as lightning. The size of the seal of mountains and rivers had shrunk by 10 times. It shone with a dazzling golden light, dragging a long golden flame behind it as it streaked across the sky at lightning speed. The purple-robed man was incomparably furious. He hurriedly withdrew his spiritual domain and chased after Ji Tianqing as fast as he could. 5 divine soul dharma eyes floated behind him, and in his left palm was a foot-tall, dark green small tree. The small tree looked like a sapling, but in fact, it had luxuriant branches and leaves, and its trunk was thick and ancient. It was an ancient tree that had lived for thousands of years. This was the purple-robed man's magic treasure, the famous green light treasure tree. The 5 divine soul dharma eyes released a boundless power, which poured into the green light treasure tree, causing the treasure tree to emit a dark green brilliance, releasing an invisible mysterious power. The invisible power released by the green light treasure tree caused the purple-robed man's figure to become illusory, blurred, like a shadow. Shua! He took a step, and in an instant, he crossed 3 kilometers in the sky, quickly closing the distance between him and Ji Tianqing. Originally, the purple-robed man had been left behind by Ji Tianqing for more than 20 miles. However, after taking more than 10 steps in the sky, he quickly caught up to Ji Tianqing. After 20 breaths, the purple-robed man relied on the miraculous effects of the green light treasure tree to overtake Ji Tianqing, blocking his path. Ji Tianqing! You will die today without a doubt, there is no way you can escape. The purple-robed man blocked Ji Tianqing, and shouted angrily. Ji Tianqing's path was blocked, and he had no choice but to stop. His eyes gloomily looked at the purple-robed man. Damn it! He really does have a dharma treasure that can teleport. He can cross several miles in one step. How can I escape? Ji Tianqing was full of anxiety, and he secretly thought of a way to escape. At this time, the purple-robed man raised his right hand, and with a wave of his sleeve, a 5-colored spiritual light covered the sky and earth. 5-direction dragon slash. In an instant, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth within a radius of dozens of miles was absorbed by the purple-robed man. There was a lush forest below, but it withered and decayed on the spot, turning into a patch of yellow rotten wood. The 2,000-meter-tall mountains also silently collapsed, turning into an endless amount of earth elemental power. The 5-colored spiritual light covered the sky, and condensed into 5 giant axes that could split the sky and earth. Carrying the blazing white flame formed by the spiritual energy, they slashed towards Ji Tianqing. The 5 giant axes attacked Ji Tianqing from 5 directions, and sealed off the sky and earth within a radius of 10 miles. Ji Tianqing still had no way to escape, and the seal of mountains and rivers was also suppressed by the violent and terrifying power, and its speed became much slower. At this critical moment, he had no time to think. He could only desperately urge the defensive power of the seal of mountains and rivers to resist the attack of the 5 giant axes. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, the 5 giant axes hit the seal of mountains and rivers almost at the same time, and a series of earth-shattering noises erupted. The sky and earth were suddenly filled with endless 5-colored spiritual light, and everything became chaotic. The forest within a radius of 15 miles was immediately crushed into powder, mixed with the soil and dust, and turned into a dark green torrent, spreading in all directions. The 3,000-foot-tall mountains collapsed in an instant, and turned into yellow soil and ruins. Such shocking destructive power was truly enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The earth-shattering noises reverberated between heaven and earth for a long time. The 5-colored spiritual light and dust that covered the sky gradually dissipated after a long time. When the sky and earth returned to peace, the mountains and forests within a radius of 15 miles were razed to the ground, and became uneven ruins. The purple-robed man stood high in the sky, looking down at the ruins below with a gloomy face and cold eyes. Even if the territorial master's golden seal is a soul-level spiritual treasure, it should be broken now, right? He murmured in a low voice, and used his spiritual eye to search the ruins below for traces of the territorial master's golden seal and Ji Tianqing. Soon, his spiritual eye saw that in the ruins 10 miles to the southwest, there was a mound of soil that moved a few times. The mound of soil that was hundreds of meters high collapsed with a crash, and a lot of soil splashed out. When the soil scattered, a dark golden seal drilled out from the ground. It was a golden seal with a radius of 3 meters, and it was the seal of mountains and rivers. However, it was not as dazzling as before, and its aura was sacred and powerful. At this moment, it had become dim, and its aura was very weak. It did not have the majestic and domineering aura that could suppress heaven and earth and encompass mountains and rivers. Seeing this, the purple-robed man frowned and cursed with a gloomy look in his eyes. Damn it! After taking 3 fatal blows from me, the territorial master's golden seal is still not broken? The golden seal that the emperor gave Ji Tianqing was not an ordinary territorial master's golden seal, but a middle-grade soul-level spiritual treasure with a more powerful array restriction added. Chapter 705. The purple-robed man knew very well that an ordinary domain lord's golden seal was only an inferior-grade soul-grade dharma treasure. The golden seal represented the domain lord's identity, so it was even more symbolic. Its actual use was not very strong for a soul refinement realm cultivator. The purple-robed man was confident that he could shatter an ordinary golden seal within 3 moves. However, Ji Tianqing's seal of mountains and rivers was still intact after withstanding 3 fatal blows. The purple-robed man immediately concluded that this golden seal must be a middle-grade soul-grade dharma treasure. Moreover, the imperial emperor had set up a restriction array on the golden seal, so its defensive power was very strong and could save lives at critical moments. From this point alone, he could guess that the imperial emperor had taken special care of Ji Tianqing. This made him wonder if Ji Tianqing really had a close relationship with the imperial court. At this moment, the seal of mountains and rivers exploded with a golden light and flew into the sky towards the east. The purple-robed man frowned, and a cold light surged in his eyes. He sneered, "Little bastard, you still don't want to give up and want to escape? I've already broken the golden seal's restriction array. Let's see if you can survive this time." As he spoke, the purple-robed man activated the power of the green light treasure tree. He crossed thousands of meters in the sky and chased after the seal of mountains and rivers. In just 10 short breaths, he caught up to the seal of mountains and rivers and blocked it in the sky. 1,000 mountains collapse. The purple-robed man shouted in a low voice. He held the green light treasure tree in his right hand and slashed at the seal of mountains and rivers. Suddenly, the dark green light treasure tree bloomed with thousands of five-colored spiritual lights and slashed at the seal of mountains and rivers with the power to destroy everything. Each five-colored spiritual light was 10 miles long, like a rainbow across the sky. Thousands of spiritual lights cut through the sky at the same time, like thousands of rainbows appearing, causing the sky within 100 miles to be dazzling and gorgeous. Although the scene was beautiful, the power of this Dharma spell was unparalleled. The thousands of spiritual lights were enough to destroy the land within 100 miles and crush thousands of mountains into ruins. The weakened seal of mountains and rivers could not block the green light treasure tree's Dharma spell. Thousands of five-colored spiritual lights descended from the sky and enveloped the seal of mountains and rivers. In the next moment, the seal of mountains and rivers was about to be shattered into pieces. Ji Tianqing would not be able to escape either, he would certainly be reduced to ashes. At this moment, the sky 1,000 meters to the left of the seal of mountains and rivers suddenly twisted and rippled. Shua! A tall figure appeared in the sky out of thin air. This person was dressed in a loose black robe and wore a specially made black gold mask, revealing only a pair of eyes that were as deep as the ocean. Just like the purple-robed man, he had concealed his true appearance. However, his bearing was extraordinary. His entire body exuded the imposing aura of a transcendent, and he wasn't any weaker than the purple-robed man. A mighty soul refinement realm expert actually needs to use the Azure Radiance treasured tree to deal with a junior? Huh. The Duanmu clan's face has been completely thrown away by you. The black-robed man sneered disdainfully. He waved his right palm like lightning and shot out a dazzling white light. The dazzling white light that was over 1,000 meters long was actually a white dragon that was completely white and extremely majestic. Roar! The holy and powerful white dragon instantly flew around the seal of mountains and rivers and circled around it, protecting the seal of mountains and rivers. When tens of thousands of five-colored spiritual lights slashed down, the holy white dragon waved its 5 dragon claws and swept its huge dragon tail, shooting out a white light that covered the entire sky. The 5-colored spiritual lights collided with the dazzling white light, causing a deafening explosion that reverberated across a radius of 100 miles. Bam, bam, bam. The two types of light exploded at the same time, turning into tens of millions of light shards that swept up a destructive hurricane and spread in all directions. Instantly, everything within a radius of 100 miles fell into chaos and became chaotic. The sky shook violently, and ripples appeared as if it was about to shatter. The undulating mountain ranges on the ground, dozens of majestic peaks, and endless dark green forests were all blasted into dust. In the blink of an eye, everything within a radius of 100 miles was turned into ruins, leaving behind a gigantic crater. After a few years, if this crater was filled with rainwater, it would become a 100-mile-wide lake. In the sky, the raging wind and dust were still dancing in the air. The holy white dragon blocked the tens of thousands of spiritual lights and successfully protected the seal of mountains and rivers. It hurriedly flew back to the black-robed man's side and quickly shrank a few hundred times, turning into a snow-white dragon spear that floated beside the black-robed man. In the sky 5 kilometers away, the purple-robed man stared at the black-robed man and the snow-white dragon spear. After seeing the snow-white dragon spear clearly, his expression changed, and he let out an incredulous roar. "Bai Longyin? It's you." Bai Longyin was the name of the snow-white dragon spear. This was a dragon spear that had been passed down for thousands of years, and it was a top-notch soul-level magic treasure. The purple-robed man instantly guessed the black-robed man's identity based on that dragon spear. Bai Longyin was a top-notch soul-level magic treasure like the green light treasure tree. However, Bai Longyin's killing power was stronger, and the green light treasure tree's main function was not to kill, but to nurture all living things. The two magic treasures had different natures and effects. If they were to really fight, Bai Longyin would obviously be superior. The purple-robed man held the green light treasure tree and stared fiercely at the black-robed man. He was so angry that he did not know what to say. Ji Tianqing and Cloud Soul Palace really have a close relationship. Even he personally came to save Ji Tianqing. Damn it! I should have thought of this long ago. If Cloud Soul Palace was not behind this, how would Ji Tianqing dare to destroy my Duanmu family's herb garden? He guessed the other party's identity and finally understood the truth. He was instantly shocked and angry, and he roared in his heart. At this moment, a golden light flashed from the seal of mountains and rivers, and a handsome and valiant figure flew out. Swoosh! The white-robed Ji Tianqing flew into the sky with a pale face and hurriedly put away the seal of mountains and rivers. His body seemed to be unharmed, but in reality, his internal organs had been damaged. His injuries were quite serious, and his combat power had been greatly reduced. Phew! Fortunately, Uncle arrived in time. Otherwise, would have lost my life. Ji Tianqing heaved a sigh of relief and thought to himself that he was lucky. He turned his head to look at the black-robed man not far away. He saw that the black-robed man was wearing a mask that covered his face, and he could not help but be stunned. Uncle actually changed his clothes and even wore a mask. But he used his natal magic treasure. The other party would definitely recognize him. Isn't this unnecessary? Ji Tianqing looked at the black-robed man and then looked at the purple-robed man. He thought to himself, both of them have guessed each other's identity, but both of them have to disguise their identities. It seems that they do not want to fall out with each other for the time being. They want to fight openly to prevent the imperial court from interfering. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing understood the crux of the matter. He hurriedly flew to the black-robed man's side and cupped his hands in respect. Thank you for saving me, Senior. Chapter 706. This is not the place to talk. Let's leave this place first. The black-robed man's voice rang in Ji Tianqing's mind. After that, he looked at the purple-robed man 10 miles away and said in a confident and overbearing tone, "With me around, you can't hurt him. Leave quickly." The purple-robed man frowned fiercely and his eyes were as cold as ice. Although he knew what the other party said was right, he was not reconciled and was so angry that he almost went berserk. He held the green light treasure tree tightly and said in a cold tone, "I heard that you went into seclusion for 3 years and only came out 2 months ago. You've already mastered the Cloud Dragon's 6 transformations. I wonder if it's true." The black-robed man raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Haha, you're well informed. Looks like you won't give up if I don't let you see my divine skill." When his voice fell, he suddenly activated his divine skill and his whole body burst out with a powerful aura. Swoosh! A dazzling white light appeared and immediately condensed into 6 huge divine soul Dharma eyes behind him. The 6 divine soul Dharma eyes were arranged in 6 directions and slowly rotated, emitting a majestic aura, making him as mysterious and majestic as a god. When the purple-robed man saw the 6 divine soul Dharma eyes appear, his pupils shrank and he whispered to himself, as expected. "I didn't expect you to break through to the 6th stage before me." The black-robed man sneered and said in a mocking tone, "Now, do you still want to humiliate yourself?" His strength was 1 stage higher than the purple-robed man and Bai Longyin's killing power was stronger than the green light treasure tree. If the 2 of them fought, the purple-robed man would definitely be defeated. The purple-robed man also understood this point but he was not reconciled and shouted in a low voice, "So what if you reached the 6th stage first? No one can stop me from killing Ji Tianqing." He roared and crazily activated his power. He used a secret method to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within 100 miles and poured it into the green light treasure tree. The green light treasure tree suddenly expanded and turned into a towering tree that was thousands of feet tall. It bloomed with colorful rays that covered the sky. Seeing this scene, the black-robed man's expression immediately changed, and his eyes darkened. He reached out to grab Ji Tianqing and put him into the black thumb ring on his left thumb. Ji Tianqing only saw a flash of brilliance in front of his eyes, and then he entered a space similar to a secret chamber. This was the internal space of a soul-grade magic treasure. There was also a similar space in the seal of mountains and rivers. The black-robed man did this to protect him from the aftermath of the battle. After all, the shockwaves from the battle between two spirit-refining stage cultivators could destroy the world. It was not something a divine origin stage cultivator could handle. After a few breaths, the purple-robed man pushed his power to the limit. He used both of his palms to cast a mysterious spell, controlling the towering tree to smash towards the black-robed man. Heaven-breaking divine light. Following his angry roar, the towering giant tree released more than 36,000 seven-colored light pillars, like a rainbow cutting through the sky, slashing toward the black-robed man. The black-robed man's eyes were cold as he shouted in a deep voice, "Since you insist on humiliating yourself, I'll fulfill your wish." As he spoke, he also used 100% of his power, using his left palm to cast a spell, using the power of the 6 divine soul Dharma eyes. He waved his right sleeve and released the white dragon's roar, which turned into a 1,000 feet long divine dragon, fiercely attacking the green light treasure tree. Dragon battle in the star field. Following the black-robed man's angry roar, the 1,000 feet long divine dragon soared into the sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it attacked the green light treasure tree. Bang, bang, bang. Boom! The sky full of white light and the 7-colored light pillars collided, creating a series of muffled sounds. Immediately after, the 1,000 feet long divine dragon fiercely attacked the green light treasure tree, creating a loud explosion that shook the sky. Instantly, the area within a radius of 200 miles was shaken, and layers of ripples appeared in the sky. Heaven and earth were turbid, filled with 7-colored light, dazzling and dazzling. The destructive shockwaves spread out like ripples, immediately destroying everything within a radius of 100 miles. This area was already in ruins, and after being swept by the shockwaves of the battle, it suddenly became a 1,000 feet deep abyss. The area within a radius of 100 miles was also affected. Countless cracks appeared on the ground, mountains collapsed, and large patches of forest were crushed into powder. What a heaven-destroying, earth-shattering showdown. In the turbid sky, the black-robed man still stood proudly, with the 6 divine soul Dharma eyes floating behind him, and the 1,000 feet long divine dragon flying in the sky before him. However, the purple-robed man was blasted dozens of miles away, crashing heavily into the ruins below, creating a 1,000-meter deep hole in the ground. The 1,000 feet tall green light treasure tree also dimmed. Hundreds of pieces of paper were broken, and thousands of green leaves were scattered. After each millstone-sized leaf fell to the ground, it turned into a rich green with spiritual light, quickly dissolving and dissipating. The purple-robed man climbed out of the ruins in a sorry state, and used his power to shake off the dust on his body. His face was pale, and he panted. His eyes flashed with anger and grief, and his body surged with a dark red murderous aura. Seeing that many branches and leaves of the towering tree were broken, his heart ached. He wanted to tear the black-robed man and Ji Tianqing into pieces. However, he could only think about it. It was impossible for him to do it today. The black-robed man's strength was even stronger than before. If he continued to fight, he would definitely be injured today. When he thought of this, he suppressed the humiliation he felt and shouted coldly, "I will remember this. Just you wait. One day, I will flatten Cloud Spirit Palace." After saying this, the purple-robed man put away the green light treasure tree, crossed thousands of meters in the sky with a single step, and quickly teleported away. The black-robed man stood high in the sky, watching the purple-robed man's figure disappear, but he did not chase after him. He waved his hand, and the 1,000-feet-long divine dragon turned back into a snow-white dragon spear, shrank into a silver needle, and put it into his body. He withdrew his powerful aura, and the 6 divine soul Dharma eyes behind him quickly disappeared. He turned back into an ordinary person. Of course, even if he did not use his magic power or release his aura, he still had the aura of a superior and the mysterious aura of a powerhouse. He reached out and took off the black gold mask, revealing a resolute, thin, and angular face. Without a doubt, he was the palace master of Cloud Spirit Palace, Yunyao's father, Yun Zhongqi. Yun Zhongqi flicked his left hand, and a flash of white light appeared on his black thumb ring. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing flew out of the ring's internal space and appeared in the sky. He looked around and saw that the battle was over, and the purple-robed man had escaped far away. Only then did he bow to Yun Zhongqi. "Uncle Yun, thank you for saving my life." Yun Zhongqi raised his hand and gestured for him to rise. He said calmly, "You don't have to thank me. This was our agreement. However, you must be careful from now on. If there are no special circumstances, it is best not to leave the imperial residence. Duanmu Huang has gone crazy. He actually tried to kill you himself. I did not expect this." Chapter 707. When he mentioned the Duanmu Huang, the anger in Ji Tianqing's eyes did not dissipate. He laughed coldly, "Humph. This means that I destroyed the Duanmu family's herb garden and caused the Duanmu family to fall into dire straits. If not for this, the Duanmu Huang would not have been so furious and attacked me without regard for his status." After a pause, he said apologetically to Yun Zhongqi, "Uncle Yun, we agreed to work together and I would deal with the Duanmu family. Now that you have appeared to save me, even if you are wearing a mask, the Duanmu Huang will definitely recognize you. The Duanmu Huang already knows about my relationship with Cloud Soul Palace. I am truly sorry for dragging Cloud Soul Palace into this." Without waiting for him to finish, Yun Zhongqi waved his hand and said, "Tianqing, you don't have to blame yourself. This is a grudge between Cloud Soul Palace and the Duanmu family. You were able to destroy the Duanmu family's herb garden, which is a great contribution. You have already greatly reduced the pressure on Cloud Soul Palace. Now that the Duanmu family is in a precarious situation, even if the Duanmu Huang knows that you are working with Cloud Soul Palace, what can they do to me? Cloud Soul Palace is not afraid of a direct battle with the Duanmu family. Furthermore, I will take advantage of this victory and completely destroy the Duanmu family." Speaking up to this point, Yun Zhongqi thought of something important and said to Ji Tianqing in a serious tone, "Tianqing, previously your aunt asked Yao Yao to pass a message to you. You already know about that matter, right? Yao Yao's grandfather, Miracle Dr. Bailey, is about to return to Zhongzhou. Next month is his 300th birthday. When the time comes, I hope that you can attend the birthday banquet and meet with Yao Yao's grandfather." Ji Tianqing immediately revealed a wisp of a smile, cupped his hands, and bowed. "Since uncle has invited me, Junior will naturally accept." Yun Zhongqi nodded slightly and said earnestly, "Since that is the case, then you should return to the imperial residence. During this period of time, try to be as careful as possible. Don't let yourself fall into dire straits. Although I can save you once, I can't protect you for long." Ji Tianqing nodded to express his understanding. Then, he bowed and bid farewell to Yun Zhongqi before turning around and flying toward Central Continent City. Yun Zhongqi stood high in the sky and watched his back disappear into the distance before leaving quietly. Inside the imperial residence, Cloud Palace. 5 colored spirit clouds enveloped the Yunshao Palace, making the majestic palace look like a fairyland. Outside the gate of the palace, there were 18 guards in armor and carrying swords, looking solemn and dignified. A young man in a blue robe, who was even more beautiful than a woman, was waiting outside the door. His left hand was behind his back, and his right hand was holding a green jade folding fan. His entire body exuded a noble and graceful aura. Without a doubt, this handsome man was precisely Murong Lingfeng. He looked calmly at Yunshao Palace. His gaze passed through the door and into the palace. His eyes were filled with anticipation and longing. About half a quarter of an hour later, an armored guard walked out of the palace and quickly returned to the gate. This person came in front of Murong Lingfeng and respectfully cupped his hands. Young Master Murong, the heavenly concubine has been busy cultivating in seclusion recently and is unable to see you. Please return. Hearing the guard's words, Murong Lingfeng's eyes instantly dimmed. A deep sense of disappointment flashed through his eyes. He didn't say anything and expressionlessly turned around to leave. He walked into the distance. This is already the third time I've come to find Soan. Ever since she entered the imperial residence, I haven't seen her even once. Did Long Yunshao imprison her in the palace and forbid her from coming out? Or is Soan unwilling to see me? The emperor is clearly heartless to her, and I'm infatuated with her. Why is she so indifferent and unwilling to see me? Murong Lingfeng silently muttered to himself. His mood was very low, and his eyes were a little gloomy. Not far from Yunshao Palace, and just as he was about to fly into the sky, a graceful figure suddenly appeared under a large tree by the side of the road. It was a beautiful woman dressed in a long brocade dress. She was dressed like a female official. Her face was delicate, and her eyes were lively. She gave off a delicate feeling that made people want to cherish her. Seeing this woman suddenly appear, Murong Lingfeng was startled. He frowned and said, "You're Lan Huixin? Why are you here?" Lan Huixin walked lightly to Murong Lingfeng. She smiled and bowed. Using a clear and pleasant voice, she said, "Huixin greets young Master Murong." "Greetings, young master." Murong Lingfeng looked at her expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Lan Huixin, aren't you Yun Yao's female official? Why did you come to Yunshao Palace?" Lan Huixin's face revealed a surprised expression. She smiled faintly and said, "I didn't expect young Master Murong to be so well informed. You even know that I'm Yun Yao's female official." Murong Lingfeng said expressionlessly, "How can this young master's power and methods be what you can imagine?" Lan Huixin maintained her smile and said respectfully, "Huixin is ignorant. Young master's family background is extraordinary. Naturally, you're well informed. You can sit at home and know about the world." Murong Lingfeng frowned and looked at her. He said indifferently, "You suddenly appeared and stopped me. What do you want to say?" Lan Huixin's beautiful eyes turned. She said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Young Master Murong often comes to Yunshao Palace. You're not here to visit the emperor, right? If I'm not wrong, you must be worried about heavenly consort and Soan. You want to see her face and comfort your lovesickness, right? Unfortunately, Soan is infatuated with the emperor and has become the imperial court's heavenly consort. Why do you keep thinking about her?" Murong Lingfeng frowned and looked at her indifferently. He asked, "The emperor has already chosen his heavenly consort. You have no hope of becoming a heavenly consort. Why do you want to stay by Yun Yao's side and be a lowly female official? You're wasting your youth and delaying your future cultivation." At this point, Lan Huixin revealed a helpless expression. She laughed bitterly and self-mockingly, "Hee, it seems that young master is the same as me. We're both people who have fallen from grace. Since that's the case, why don't we work together and achieve our wishes?" "You? Work together with this young master?" Murong Lingfeng raised his eyebrows and revealed a disdainful sneer. "Hee, with your status and power, what qualifications do you have to talk about working together with this young master?" Lan Huixin was looked down upon and humiliated, but she wasn't angry at all. She said with a solemn expression, "Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao have a close relationship. The emperor also has a close relationship with them. Their relationship isn't shallow. Although Ansuan is a heavenly consort, she's all alone in Yunxiao Palace. She's filled with worry and resentment all day long. Young Master Murong, what if I can make the Emperor and Ji Tianqing fall out and cause a misunderstanding between the Emperor and Yunyao? Then Ansuan will misunderstand the Emperor and be sad and disappointed? Wouldn't the enmity between these four be exactly what you want? Wouldn't it be greatly beneficial to you? Murong Lingfeng coldly stared at Lan Huixin and asked, the Emperor and Yunyao have a misunderstanding, causing Suan to be sad and disappointed in the Emperor. This is indeed beneficial to this young master. However, so what if the Emperor and Ji Tianqing fall out and become enemies? What does it have to do with this young master? Chapter 708. Suddenly hearing Lan Huixin's words, Murong Lingfeng's expression changed and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Whoosh! His figure flashed 10 steps away and instantly appeared in front of Lan Huixin. He reached out his left hand at lightning speed and grabbed her neck. You dare to spy on the Murong family's secret? Speak! What else do you know? Lan Huixin's neck was being choked by Murong Lingfeng's large hand. Her feet left the ground and her face turned pale as she struggled. However, she was only at the Yuan Dan stage. No matter how much she struggled, she could not escape from Murong Lingfeng's grasp. Her face was full of anxiety and her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She looked very pitiful. Cough cough. Sir Murong. Please let me go. I definitely did not and would not dare to spy on the Murong family's secret. I only know that Ji Tianqing has many enemies and is the target of public criticism. You and the Duanmu family both want to get rid of him. Other than that, I really don't know anything else. Murong Lingfeng frowned and thought for a moment. He then looked at her with a cold smile and said in a deep voice, Lan Huixin, you're very smart. You know that you're weak and know how to take advantage of others. However, you don't have the right to work with me. As he spoke, a light flashed in Murong Lingfeng's right hand and a dark green pill the size of a broad bean appeared. He pinched the pill between his fingers and quickly shoved it into Lan Huixin's mouth. Lan Huixin immediately choked and coughed. She shook her head and struggled, wanting to spit out the pill. However, a green light gushed out from Murong Lingfeng's palm, wrapping around the dark green pill and entering her abdomen. In the blink of an eye, the pill's medicinal power was catalyzed and turned into a rich black medicinal power. It spread to Lan Huixin's limbs and bones and hid in her body. After doing all this, Murong Lingfeng released Lan Huixin and said with an icy expression, Lan Huixin, don't try to show off your schemes in front of me. If you want to use my power to achieve your goal, you must pay the corresponding price and listen to my orders. Just now, I gave you the 100 poison heart-devouring pill. This pill will hide in your body for 3 years and will never be removed. If you obediently listen to this young master, then your life will naturally not be in danger. If you dare to play any tricks on this young master will take your life with a single thought and let you taste the pain of 100 poisons devouring your heart. When Lan Huixin heard what he said, her expression changed drastically. Her eyes widened, revealing a look of horror. She had never thought that Murong Lingfeng, who had a gentle and graceful demeanor on the surface, would actually be so despicable, vicious, and unscrupulous. At this moment, her heart was filled with regret. She hated herself for taking the initiative to look for Murong Lingfeng. In the end, she was a victim of her own cleverness. She was poisoned by Murong Lingfeng and could only listen to him. Now that things had come to this, it was too late for regrets. She truly wanted to cry but had no tears. When Ji Tianqing returned to the imperial residence, it was already evening. When he returned to Tianqing Palace, he hurriedly took out some healing pills and meditated in his room, silently treating his injuries. 2 hours later, a guard came to report that Yunyao had come to Tianqing Palace to look for him and was waiting in the study room. When Ji Tianqing heard the news, he hurriedly ended his meditation and rushed to the study room. He had just entered the study room when he saw Yunyao standing in front of the window. Her expression was grave and her eyes contained a hint of worry. "Yao Yao, you're here." Ji Tianqing walked into the study room and greeted Yunyao. Yunyao immediately returned to her senses and turned to look at him. She asked in a concerned tone, "Tianqing, how are your injuries? Are they serious? Just now, I heard from the guard that when you returned to Tianqing Palace, your complexion was very bad. You seem to be seriously injured. What exactly happened?" As she spoke, she walked in front of Ji Tianqing and carefully sized him up. Ji Tianqing smiled and shook his head. He pulled her to sit down on a chair and comforted her. "Yao Yao, don't worry. My injuries aren't serious. I'll be able to recover after half a month of secluded cultivation. In the past 2 days, Yan Er's third imperial uncle has come to Central State City and is looking for Hui Yan everywhere." Ji Tianqing explained to Yunyao what had happened today, including Hui Yan's identity and experience, as well as the Duanmu Huang's attack on him. Yunyao was not interested in Hui Yan's identity and background. She was only worried about Ji Tianqing's safety. When she heard that the Duanmu Huang had personally attacked Ji Tianqing, she couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. She was extremely worried. When she heard that her father, Yun Zhongqi, had arrived in time and luckily saved Ji Tianqing's life, she finally let out a sigh of relief. After a while, when Ji Tianqing finished explaining the entire matter, she hurriedly warned him, "Tianqing, the Duanmu Huang has been forced into a desperate situation by you. The Duanmu Huang actually personally attacked you. Fortunately, you issued the auspicious cloud token in time, so my father was able to save you in time. If my father had arrived a moment later, I really don't know how terrible the consequences would have been. You must be extra careful in the future. You can't leave the monarch palace so easily anymore." In order to not let Yunyao worry, Ji Tianqing naturally nodded and agreed. "Amen, Yao Yao, don't worry. I won't give the Duanmu Huang a chance to assassinate me again. Moreover, I've been seriously injured this time. I'll need to go into secluded cultivation for at least half a month to recover." Yunyao asked a few more questions and gave a few words of concern before she finally felt relieved. "Tianqing, you're injured now, so I won't take up any more of your time. You can go into secluded cultivation to recover. If there's anything urgent, I'll come and find you again." After saying that, Yunyao got up and took her leave, leaving Tianqing Palace. After she left, Ji Tianqing also returned to his residence and went into secluded cultivation to recover. After an hour, Yunyao returned to her own cave residence. She had just returned to the sleeping quarters of her residence when a graceful figure quickly walked into the sleeping quarters. This person was her female official, Lan Huixin. She came in front of her and bowed, reporting, "Big Sister Yun, you haven't been in the palace for the past 2 days. The emperor has come to look for you several times. Every time you weren't around, this servant would send the emperor away. However, this servant saw that the emperor's expression was strange. He must have something urgent to look for you, so this servant specially came to inform you." After listening to Lan Huixin's report, Yunyao immediately frowned as a trace of doubt flashed across her eyes. "Long Yunshao came to look for me several times? What's so important about him? Could it be about Tianqing and the Duanmu family?" This thought flashed across Yunyao's mind, and she immediately had an idea. "Okay, I got it. You can leave." She calmly waved her hand, indicating for Lan Huixin to leave. After Lan Huixin left the sleeping quarters, she got up and left Yunyao Palace, rushing to the emperor's cave residence, Yunshao Palace. Lan Huixin had been hiding outside the palace, secretly watching Yunyao. Seeing that she was rushing to Yunshao Palace, a trace of a cold smile flashed across her eyes. She hurriedly took out a note that she had written long ago, tied it to the leg of a messenger spirit bird, and released the spirit bird. Chapter 709. By the time Yunyao arrived at Long Yunxiao's cave, night had already fallen. The guards of Cloudy Palace were no strangers to her. They hurriedly opened the door and led her into Cloudy Palace. A few minutes later, the guards led her to the reception hall and had her sit down to drink tea while waiting. They then went to report the news to Long Yunxiao. At the same time, the rainbow spirit bird also arrived at Cloudy Palace and flew into a deep palace in the depths of the palace. This magnificent palace was Heavenly Consort Ansoan's bedroom. Ansoan was wearing a long brocade dress and a jade phoenix coronet on her head. Her hair was tied up in a bun with a golden hairpin. She was sitting in front of the window. Although she was dressed in splendid attire and looked graceful and luxurious, her eyes were staring blankly at the night sky outside the window. Deep resentment was hidden in the depths of her eyes. Whoosh! At this time, the rainbow spirit bird descended from the sky and landed in front of the window. Ansoan was startled awake. She stared at the messenger bird for a moment, then took a small piece of paper from the bird's leg. There were only 2 short sentences on the paper. After she finished reading it, her expression changed and a cold light flashed through her eyes. Damn it! What does she think Cloudy Palace is? She actually dares to ignore this consort's existence. Ansoan's beautiful face was cold and she angrily shouted in a low voice. Then, she quickly walked out of the bedroom and quietly rushed to the reception hall. When she quietly entered the guest hall, she heard Long Yunxiao and Yunyao's voices coming from the hall when she was still a few dozen steps away. Ansoan's expression changed slightly when she heard the 2 of them talking. She hurriedly entered a quiet room at the side of the hall and hid in the dark to listen to the movements in the hall. Inside the hall, Long Yunxiao and Yunyao exchanged a few pleasantries before taking their respective seats and starting to talk. Long Yunxiao looked at Yunyao with a gentle gaze and said with a smile, "Yao Yao, why did you take the initiative to look for this monarch today? Is there something wrong?" Yunyao glanced at him and said with a calm expression, "If you didn't look for me time and time again, why would I look for you? Speaking of which, I should be the one asking. Why are you looking for me?" Long Yunxiao was startled for a moment, but he immediately reacted and said, "Yes, I have looked for you several times, and I do have something to ask you. I heard that your grandfather, Miracle Dr. Bailey, is returning to Zhongzhou. Cloud Spirit Palace is going to hold his 300th birthday celebration next month." "Yes, that's true." Yunyao nodded. Long Yunxiao smiled and said, "Although the invitation from Cloud Soul Palace hasn't arrived yet, I already know about it and have prepared a congratulatory gift. When the time comes, I will personally go to Cloud Soul Palace to congratulate." "Yao Yao, when are you going back to Cloud Soul Palace? We can go back together." In a quiet room at the side of the main hall, Ansoan heard the conversation between Long Yunxiao and Yunyao. She immediately frowned as a trace of disappointment and resentment flashed through her eyes. There's actually such a thing? Why haven't I heard of it? The Emperor is preparing to go to Cloud Spirit Palace to celebrate his birthday. As the heavenly concubine, why didn't I receive any news? Could it be that the Emperor is planning to go to Cloud Soul Palace with Yunyao and not bring me along? At this moment, Long Yunxiao and Yunyao talked about another matter. Long Yunxiao said in a concerned tone, "Yao Yao, Ji Tianqing is too daring. He actually destroyed the Duanmu family's herb garden and caused the Duanmu family to suffer great losses. The situation in Zhongzhou is also in chaos. Although the imperial court won't say anything and won't interfere in this matter, they still have to protect the stability of Zhongzhou. Also, the Duanmu family has been forced into a dead end. They will definitely fight back and take revenge on all their enemies. Ji Tianqing is the first to bear the brunt of it. I'm worried that you will be affected. You must be careful." "Yes, I know. Thank you for your concern." Yunyao replied calmly. After pausing for a moment, she thought of something and said to Long Yunxiao, "Yunxiao, Tianqing has his own plans and reasons for doing this. At least, it can reduce a lot of pressure on Cloud Soul Palace. I know that Tianqing's actions will destroy the balance and cause Zhongzhou to be in chaos. It will most likely make the emperor unhappy. If the imperial court does anything that is not beneficial to Tianqing, I hope you can help." Hearing this, Long Yunxiao revealed a bitter smile and said with a complicated tone, "Ao Yao, you have never begged anyone and you have never lowered your head to anyone. I didn't expect you to say this to me because of him." Yunyao looked at him calmly and asked indifferently, "So, are you going to help or not?" Long Yunxiao immediately revealed a face full of smiles and quickly nodded, "I'll help. Since you've asked, how can I sit back and do nothing?" "Yes, that's more like it." Yunyao replied and thanked him. And Soan, who was in the quiet room, heard the conversation between Long Yunxiao and Yunyao. Her heart instantly ached and a layer of mist appeared in her eyes. As expected, the emperor is still infatuated with Yunyao. He treats her like a treasure and listens to her every word. For her, the emperor is willing to give up his dignity and help his love rival. But for me, for the past few months, the emperor has turned a blind eye to me and has never cared about me. Why? Why does he treat Yunyao like a god and treat me like a worn-out shoe? At this moment, a guard quickly walked into the guest hall. After bowing to Long Yunxiao and Yunyao, he respectfully reported the news. "Reporting to your highness, the emperor's guard has summoned you to discuss something." After listening to the guard's report, Long Yunxiao nodded and waved his hand, indicating for him to withdraw. Then, he revealed an apologetic smile to Yunyao and said, "Yao Yao, wait here for a moment. I'll go take care of something and will be back soon." "Amen, go ahead." Yunyao nodded in response. After Long Yunxiao left the hall, she picked up the spiritual tea on the table and quietly sipped it while waiting. However, Yunyao had just taken 2 sips of tea when she heard footsteps in the hall. She subconsciously turned her head and saw Soan, who was wearing a long brocade dress and looking elegant and graceful, walking over with a frosty expression. Yunyao was stunned for a moment. She didn't understand why Soan suddenly appeared. At this moment, Soan walked into the hall and stood 10 steps away from her. She said in a cold voice, "Yunyao, I already warned you last time. I didn't expect you to be so shameless as to take the initiative to come to Yunxiao Palace." Hearing Soan's words, Yunyao immediately frowned. She put down the teacup in her hand and her expression turned cold. She said indifferently, "Heavenly concubine, please watch your words. I'm looking for the emperor to discuss something serious." "I definitely didn't." Before she could explain, Soan interrupted her with a cold smile. "Ha ha ha. Yunyao, you're indeed a two-faced person. You pretend to be pure and innocent, but you're actually a manipulator. You chatted with the emperor, invited him to Yunling Palace's birthday celebration, and asked him to help you. Are all these things serious business? I think you're secretly in cahoots with the emperor. I've already caught you in the act. How are you going to deny it?" Soan became even more agitated due to her strong feelings of bitterness, jealousy, and anger. Her tone became even more sorrowful and fierce. Chapter 710. The House of Red Sleeves was a rather elegant way of putting it. But in reality, it was referring to the courtesans in the brothel. Soan was clearly criticizing Yunyao. She pretended to be pure on the surface, but in reality, she was secretly seducing Long Yunxiao like a courtesan. How could Yunyao endure such humiliation? Her expression immediately turned cold as she yelled angrily, "Soan! Even if you're the heavenly consort, you shouldn't insult my reputation like this." As she spoke, she raised her hand and slapped Soan. Soan couldn't dodge in time and was slapped across the face by Yunyao. Slap! And Sowen's face turned pale from the slap and she staggered back 2 steps. She instinctively covered her face and glared at Yun Yao in disbelief. She yelled angrily, "You dare hit me? I'm the mistress of Yun Shao Palace. Yun Yao. How dare you attack the heavenly consort?" And Sowen was shocked and furious. She yelled angrily, "Guards! Take down this insolent person. Today, I'll let her know who's the mistress of Yun Shao Palace and who's the heavenly consort." Following An Sowen's order, the 2 guards guarding the entrance immediately rushed into the main hall to capture Yun Yao. Yun Yao was also filled with anger after being humiliated by An Sowen for no reason. She was truly furious. When she saw the 2 guards pouncing over, her expression instantly turned cold. Her eyes were sharp as she yelled, "Let's see who dares to touch me." She had a noble and otherworldly aura to begin with. Now that she yelled angrily, her aura was naturally dignified and awe-inspiring. The 2 guards knew her identity and didn't dare to make a move. After exchanging glances with each other, the 2 of them retreated to the corner of the hall. And Sowen flew into a rage when she saw this. She reprimanded them fiercely, "Bastards! You dare to disobey my orders?" The 2 guards looked troubled. They didn't dare to capture Yun Yao, but they couldn't explain themselves either. The 2 of them could only lower their heads and pretend that nothing had happened. Yun Yao glared at An Sowen and said coldly, "An Sowen, don't go overboard. Not to mention you, even if the emperor was here, he wouldn't dare to humiliate me like this, much less order the guards to capture me." An Sowen's cold gaze swept past the 2 guards, then she turned to Yun Yao and shouted angrily, "Humph! The Son of Heaven is infatuated with you and cherishes you. Of course, he wouldn't bear to punish you. Since that's the case, I'll do it myself." After saying that, An Sowen really did pounce on Yun Yao and swung her palms at Yun Yao. Perhaps it was to take revenge for the slap just now, but she used all her strength to slap Yun Yao's face. However, An Sowen only had the strength of the Origin Core stage. No matter how angry she was and how much strength she used, she couldn't hurt Yun Yao. When her palms came at her at lightning speed, Yun Yao's figure flashed and she retreated 5 steps, easily dodging the attack. An Sowen's palms missed and she became even angrier. She roared hysterically, "Yun Yao! Don't even think about dodging. No matter what, I won't let you off easily today. Even if the emperor begs for mercy on your behalf, it's useless." The anger and resentment that had accumulated over the past few months made An Sowen very emotional. She was filled with grief and indignation, and tears welled up in her eyes. She let out a low growl and pounced towards Yun Yao again, this time with an even faster speed. She spread her fingers and grabbed at Yun Yao like an eagle's claws, vowing to capture Yun Yao on the spot. Yun Yao had the strength of the divine origin stage and could instinctively repel An Sowen with a casual move. However, this was Yun Shao Palace, and An Sowen was a heavenly consort. If she really fought back and injured An Sowen, it would definitely deepen the misunderstanding and hurt the imperial court's reputation. Therefore, she could only hurriedly dodge and couldn't fight back. Otherwise, it would only make things worse. When An Sowen pounced on her relentlessly, she moved nimbly and her figure flashed again and again, constantly dodging An Sowen's attacks. An Sowen was determined to capture her. She chased after her endlessly in the main hall and tangled with her. Soon, 20 breaths of time passed. An Sowen pounced on Yun Yao more than 10 times, but she still couldn't catch her. She couldn't even touch the corner of Yun Yao's clothes. Deep grief and humiliation made her more and more irritable. She finally lost her patience. "Demon sealing divine palm!" An Sowen shouted in a cold voice. She finally used all of her strength and used the An family's secret palm technique. Her palms immediately became dazzling and released a dark green spirit light, bursting with an incomparably powerful aura. She condensed 2 palms the size of millstones in her hands and grabbed at Yun Yao from both sides. Yunyao's slender figure was immediately engulfed by the two giant palms of light. She was about to be captured. At this critical moment, Yunyao was still calm and composed. She didn't care about Ansoan's secret palm technique at all. She was about to use her movement technique to dodge when an angry shout suddenly came from the main hall's entrance. "Stop! What are you doing?" It was Long Yunxiao's voice. His tone was angry, anxious, and also contained a hint of worry. When his voice rang out, his entire body turned into a five-colored spirit light and streaked across the main hall like lightning. He rushed between Yunyao and Ansoan. Although, he still didn't know what was going on. However, when he saw Ansoan attacking Yunyao with both palms, he subconsciously shielded Yunyao behind him. Then, he raised his right hand and sent a giant five-colored palm towards Ansoan. Bang! With a dull sound, the giant five-colored palm smashed the two dark green palms into pieces. The five-colored palm's power hadn't dissipated yet. It viciously slammed into Ansoan and sent her flying. Pfft! Ansoan spat out a mouthful of blood and flew a dozen meters away. She landed heavily on the ground with a dull thud. When she struggled to get up from the ground, her face was already pale. Her hair was disheveled, and her pretty face was filled with despair. She didn't even wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. She looked at Long Yunxiao in a daze and revealed a bitter cold smile. He. I knew it. For the woman you love, you're willing to do anything and everything without distinguishing between right and wrong. But to me, you treat me like dirt and throw me away like a worn-out shoe. Long Yunxiao. I hate you. Ansoan's voice was filled with grief and indignation. She looked like her heart had died. After shouting coldly, she turned around and left without looking back. Her figure staggered out of the main hall. Long Yunxiao watched as her figure disappeared from the main hall's entrance. A trace of pity flashed through his eyes. However, he quickly retracted his gaze and looked at Yunyao with concern. Yao, are you all right? Yunyao looked at him with a complicated expression and shook her head. I'm fine. With Ansoan's strength, she can't do anything to me. You, on the other hand, shouldn't have stopped her. You even injured her. Chapter 7:11. Yunyao understood Ansoan's feelings, and she also knew the reason behind it. Although she was furious, she didn't want to hurt Ansoan. In her eyes, Ansoan was also a pitiful person. Moreover, she and the emperor were originally innocent and didn't have any entanglements. But she didn't expect things to develop to this point. It really couldn't be cut, and things were getting messier and messier. However, Long Yunxiao's expression didn't change, and his heart didn't waver too much. He stared at Yunyao and said gently, Yao, this was an emergency. This monarch also didn't expect things to turn out like this. But no matter what happens, this monarch won't let you get hurt, and I definitely won't let anyone hurt you. Long Yunxiao's gaze was very firm, and his tone was full of tenderness. Yunyao avoided his gaze and turned to look outside the hall. She said calmly, Emperor, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. After saying that, she cupped her hands towards Long Yunxiao, then walked out of the hall. Long Yunxiao watched her departing figure with a complicated expression. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. After a long time, when Yunyao left Yunxiao Palace, he withdrew his gaze and silently sighed. Unknowingly, 2 days passed. After Yunyao returned to her immortal's cave, she meditated and cultivated for 2 days. During this time, Long Yunxiao didn't come to Yunyao Palace to look for her, and no one else came to disturb her peace. The impact of that incident was gradually fading. She originally thought that it was just a small interlude, and a small storm was about to pass. However, on the morning of the 3rd day, a maid delivered a letter to her. Eldest young miss, there's a letter for you. I understand. You can leave. Yunyao stopped meditating and reached out to take the letter. She looked down and saw that there was no name on the dark brown envelope, so she opened it and took out the letter inside. There was a sentence written in the letter. If you want to save the heavenly consort, come to the southern suburbs Swallow Return Mountain. When Yunyao saw this sentence, her expression immediately changed, and a trace of confusion flashed through her eyes. Save and Soen? Why did he save her? Could she be in danger? Yunyao held the letter and frowned in confusion. After a moment of hesitation, she put the letter back into the envelope and got up to leave Yunyao Palace. She flew into the sky and rushed towards Cloud Palace as fast as lightning. She wanted to find Long Yunxiao and ask him what had happened. An hour later, Yunyao landed outside the gate of Yunxiao Palace. Shua. The guard at the door saw her hurrying over and hurriedly led her into the guest hall of Yunxiao Palace. Not long after, Long Yunxiao heard the news and rushed to the main hall. Yao Yao, why have you come to find me? Yunyao looked at him and asked solemnly, Emperor, is the heavenly consort in Yunxiao Palace? Long Yunxiao shook his head and said with a complicated tone, ever since that incident, the heavenly consort left Yunxiao Palace and left the monarch's residence. I've already sent people to look for her, but there's been no news. Hearing this, Yunyao's expression changed slightly. She hurriedly took out the letter and handed it to Long Yunxiao. Someone sent me this letter just now. Take a look. Long Yunxiao frowned and a strange look flashed through his eyes. He took the letter and opened it, then took out an identical letter from his interspatial ring. Coincidentally, I also received a mysterious letter just now. It's exactly the same as yours. Yunyao took the letter and saw that the two letters were indeed the same. She immediately frowned and said with a serious and doubtful expression, it seems that the heavenly consort must have been in danger after she went missing. She was most likely captured. The other party sent us this letter to ask us to save the heavenly consort. Long Yunxiao nodded and said, Yao Yao, this matter needs to be carefully considered. It's enough that the other party captured the heavenly consort and sent me a message. Why did they send you an identical letter? I suspect that there must be some kind of conspiracy behind this. Yunyao frowned and asked in a deep voice, what's the other party's motive for asking us to save the heavenly consort? Long Yunxiao pondered for a moment but didn't have any clue. He said in a serious tone, everyone in the world knows the heavenly consort's identity. If the other party is a human, even if they captured the heavenly consort, they wouldn't dare to kill her. The heavenly consort is my wife in name. I'll naturally send people to save her. Yao Yao, this matter has nothing to do with you. You don't need to pay attention to this letter. Yunyao was silent for a moment. She held the two letters with both hands and secretly checked them. With the special talent of the celestial sacred body, she quickly found that there was a trace of a foreign race's aura in the two letters. Unfortunately, the two traces of foreign race's aura were very weak and faintly discernible. Yunyao could only determine that the two traces of foreign race's aura were almost the same, but she couldn't tell what race they belonged to. She told this to Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao immediately revealed a surprised expression. There's a foreign race's aura in the two letters, and it's the same? Could it be that the person who sent the letters is a foreign race? Or perhaps, the person who wrote the letters is a foreign race? Could the heavenly consort have been captured by a foreign race? Yunyao thought for a moment and said with a serious expression, the central continent city and the monarch's mansion are inhabited by both humans and foreign races. It's normal for the aura of foreign races to appear. Just based on this point, it's very difficult for us to determine who captured the heavenly consort. Son of Heaven, I'll go with you to find the heavenly consort. It'll definitely be faster and easier than you sending your guards to find her. After all, I have the celestial sacred body's bloodline. I'm very sensitive to the aura of other races. I should be able to help you. This. Long Yunxiao hesitated and didn't answer. He instinctively wanted to refuse. He didn't want Yunyao to be involved in this dangerous plot. However, it was rare for Yunyao to travel with him. He didn't want to miss this opportunity to be alone with her. After thinking for a moment, he finally nodded and agreed. All right, since that's the case, let's work together to rescue the heavenly consort. I want to see who the other party is. They actually dare to disregard the dignity of the imperial court and make a move on the heavenly consort. They're plotting against me. After saying that, Long Yunxiao brought Yunyao out of the main hall. Both of them were in the heaven origin stage. They didn't bring any guards or attendants. After leaving the Yunxiao palace, the two of them flew across the sky as fast as lightning and rushed towards the exit of the monarch's mansion. The location mentioned in the two mysterious letters was Mount Yanhui in the southern outskirts of the central continent city. That mountain range was located 300 miles south of the city. It wasn't eye-catching at all. Long Yunxiao and Yunyao had both heard of Mount Yanhui. They knew that it was a mountain range that was hundreds of miles long. There were several peaks that were thousands of feet high. However, the letters didn't mention which mountain they had to go to rescue the heavenly consort and so on. Chapter 7:12. When the sun was high up in the sky, Long Yunxiao and Yunyao entered the depths of the mountains in the southern suburbs and arrived at Swallow Return Mountain. Looking down from high up in the sky, they saw towering mountain ranges stretching out in all directions. Towering dark green peaks were located in each mountain range, exuding an ancient and majestic aura. The two of them stood in the sky above Swallow Return Mountain and looked down at the three peaks below. The three mountain peaks were all thousands of feet tall, and they all looked the same. There was nothing special about them. Yunyao secretly circulated her energy and used her celestial sacred physique bloodline to detect the aura of the foreign races. However, she found nothing and couldn't detect the aura of the foreign races. Long Yunxiao's eyesight was very keen and he immediately saw the clues. Yao Yao, look. There are many cracks in Swallow Return Mountain and a large part of the forest has been destroyed. There are still many pits left. Judging from the cracks and pits, there must have been a fight here before. Moreover, it must have been a fight between several sky origin stage experts. Yunyao looked in the direction he pointed and saw that the towering mountain was full of cracks and a large part of the lush forest had been destroyed. There were more than a dozen deep pits and ravines on the entire Swallow Return Mountain, turning it into a mess of ruins. Yunyao frowned and said in a deep voice, "That's right. A fight did happen here. Let's look for it first." After saying that, she and Long Yunxiao landed on the mountain range. The two of them split up and released their spiritual senses to conduct a carpet search. 3 hours later, the two of them had thoroughly searched the entire Swallow Return Mountain range. However, they didn't find anyone, nor did they find any useful clues. Both of them were full of doubts. Yunyao frowned and asked, "Son of Heaven, we've already searched the entire Swallow Return Mountain range but found nothing. The other party isn't here at all. They didn't hide Heavenly Consort here either. What are you going to do?" Long Yunxiao also frowned and said helplessly, "We don't have any other clues except for those two letters. What else can we do? In my opinion, we should just wait here and act according to the circumstances. Since the other party sent us a letter to come here, they must have taken action." Yunyao thought for a moment and nodded. "That's the only thing we can do. Let's wait and see." Therefore, Long Yunxiao used his formation skills to set up a heavenly origin defensive formation on the mountain peak. The defensive power of this formation was not bad, but it only had a radius of 10 meters, which was just enough to cover a patch of grass and a millstone. After setting up the formation, Long Yunxiao and Yunyao sat upright on the millstone and closed their eyes to rest, waiting silently. The sun continued to set in the west, and time passed quietly. The peak of the mountain was very quiet. Only the sound of the mountain breeze blowing through the forest could be heard. Unknowingly, the afternoon passed. Long Yunxiao and Yunyao waited until dusk, but no one appeared, let alone the person who sent the mysterious letter. Their patience gradually wore thin, and the worry and uneasiness in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, in the sky not far away, a dark red cloud suddenly floated over. At first glance, the dark red cloud looked like a sunset that had been dyed red by the setting sun. However, the red cloud was extremely fast, streaking across the sky like a bolt of lightning. Within a few breaths, it had arrived above the mountain. Long Yunxiao and Yunyao immediately sensed that something was wrong. They both opened their eyes and looked up at the red cloud above their heads. They saw that the red cloud had a radius of 1,000 meters, and its color was dark red as if it was condensed by blood light. The red cloud exuded a strong smell of blood, and it kept rolling and surging, containing a terrifying power. This is a blood cloud. It's a demon powerhouse. Yunyao was very sensitive to the aura of the demons. She immediately determined that the red cloud was a blood cloud condensed by a demon powerhouse. Long Yunxiao immediately frowned, and his eyes were a little gloomy. He said in a cold tone, "Previously, the imperial court had heard that many demon powerhouses sneaked into Zhongzhou, disguised as humans, and moved frequently in the dark. I didn't expect the demons to be so arrogant and dare to come to me openly." As his voice fell, the blood cloud in the sky suddenly converged, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into a human figure. It was a demon man wearing a blood-red robe, and he was as thin as a bamboo pole. His appearance was a little strange. His skin was pale and bloodless, like a cold corpse. He had a head of dark red waist-length hair, tied into 3 braids, and a few fangs in his flat mouth. His pair of dark red eyes contained a bloodthirsty cold light that made people tremble in fear. The blood-robed man looked down at Yunyao and Long Yunxiao. His eyes were shining with excitement, and he sneered. "Kakik. I'm really lucky today to meet you here. Since you delivered yourself to me, I won't be polite. Today, both of you must stay." The blood-robed man's tone was very playful, like a cat playing with a mouse. Obviously, he regarded Long Yunxiao and Yunyao as turtles in a jar. Yunyao hated the demons to the core. Naturally, her eyes were filled with cold light, and she glared at the blood-robed man with murderous intent. Long Yunxiao could still maintain his calm. He stared coldly at the blood-robed man and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Do you know who I am?" "Ha ha ha." The blood-robed man raised his head and laughed. His voice was full of contempt and disdain. "Aren't you the emperor of the human clan? You are the noble emperor of the human clan. In front of me, you are not even a fart. Remember, I, Xueqianjiang, will take your lives today." Xueqianjiang shouted coldly. He immediately waved his hand and formed a mysterious seal, performing a secret technique of the demons. "Demonic Dragon Soul Search." Xueqianjiang shouted angrily. His palms released a blood light that covered the sky and earth. It condensed into 2 blood dragons that were 100 meters long, and they attacked fiercely. Swish! Swish! The 2 blood dragons with strong bodies and evil auras fell from the sky toward Long Yunxiao and Yunyao with monstrous blood and murderous intent. The 2 of them did not expect Xueqianjiang to attack so decisively. Their expressions changed, and they quickly defended themselves. Yunyao took out the cold moon sword. She formed a sword technique with her left hand and waved the sword with her right hand. She used all her strength to slash out a white sword light. Moonlight essence. The white sword light that was dozens of meters long was like a silver-white crescent moon. It carried an indomitable aura and slashed toward the demonic blood dragons fiercely. Long Yunxiao also put on the God of War armor. He held the nine-cloud sword in his right hand and used all his strength to slash out a huge golden sword light to block the attack of the demonic blood dragons. In the next moment, the two sword lights and the two demonic blood dragons collided with each other, and there was a muffled bang-bang sound. The loud sound echoed among the mountains. The dazzling golden light, silver light, and blood-red light lit up the dark sky for dozens of miles. The violent and raging energy rolled up a shocking hurricane and spread out in all directions. Immediately, the lush forest around the mountain peak suffered a calamity and was immediately crushed into fine powder. Chapter 7:13. The loud noise that reverberated in the sky gradually dissipated, and the heaven and earth returned to peace. The towering mountain that was thousands of feet high was now broken into pieces. The defensive array that Long Yunxiao had set up had been shattered by the two blood demon dragons. He and Yunyao stood in the sky, facing Xue Qianjiang from thousands of meters away. Their faces were a little embarrassed, and they looked at Xue Qianjiang with vigilance and fear. Long Yunxiao was wearing the God of War armor, and his whole body was emitting a strong fighting spirit. He didn't seem to be injured, but his breath was a little disordered. Apparently, he was injured. He used his spiritual sense to tell Yunyao, Yao, you have to be careful. This demon is at least at Sky Origin Stage 6. Yunyao nodded and replied, yes, I'm afraid we are not his match. We shouldn't be entangled with him. Long Yunxiao agreed and said in a low voice, let's think of a way to get rid of him. Our top priority is to find the Heavenly Lady as soon as possible. The two of them had tested Xue Qianjiang's strength with one move, and they already had the intention to retreat. At this moment, Xue Qianjiang looked at them with a mocking look and sneered, don't struggle. You have no chance to escape from me. As he spoke, his figure flashed and turned into a blood light, rushing toward Yunyao. Sky blood flowing light. A blood light that was hundreds of meters long, like a giant blade that could split heaven and earth, chopped toward Yunyao's head. Xue Qianjiang obviously knew that Yunyao was the weaker one among the two of them, so he attacked Yunyao first. The dark red giant blade cut through the sky faster than lightning, and instantly chopped toward Yunyao's head. Yunyao's face changed, and she subconsciously wanted to retreat. However, the giant blade released a boundless invisible power, which had already sealed the space within thousands of meters. She felt like she was in a quagmire, and no matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't escape from the suppression of the invisible power. Her speed was as slow as a snail. She couldn't escape from the giant blade and was about to be hit. At this critical moment, she didn't hesitate to wave the cold moon sword and perform her unique sword art. River of Stars. The cold moon treasured sword emitted starlight that filled the sky. It was as if hundreds of thousands of bright stars had gathered to form a dazzling galaxy. Not only was the River of Stars dazzling and gorgeous, but it also contained a mysterious and vast power as it rushed toward the blood-red light. Boom! The dazzling galaxy collided with the blood-red heaven-splitting blade, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The Milky Way was instantly cut into pieces by the giant blood-red blade. It was fragmented and turned into billions of specks of starlight that scattered in the sky. Yunyao was also sent flying back. She drew an arc in the sky and fell 1,000 meters away. While she was still in midair, she had already spat out a mouthful of blood, and her beautiful face became as white as snow. However, the blood-red blade hadn't dissipated yet, and its power hadn't decreased in the slightest. It continued to attack her. At this moment, Long Yunxiao finally arrived. Shua. Seeing that Yunyao was injured, he was extremely worried and angry. He unleashed all his potential, and his body turned into a golden ray of light as he rushed to Yunyao's side with all his might. When the giant blood-red blade slashed down from the sky, he desperately rushed towards the giant blade, wanting to help Yunyao block this fatal blow. Celestial body protection. Long Yunxiao shouted angrily. The vital essence in his body surged out like a flood and condensed into a five-colored wall in front of him. This wall of spiritual light was 10 meters in length and width. It seemed to be only half a foot thick, but it was harder than any steel wall. Its defensive power was extremely strong. In the next moment, the blood-red blade slashed the celestial body protection, resulting in a deafening explosion. Kaboom! The five-colored celestial body protection was smashed into pieces by the blood-red blade. It exploded into millions of spiritual light fragments and splashed in all directions. Long Yunxiao was also sent flying. He rolled and smashed into the mountains below. With a loud plop, a huge pit with a radius of 1,000 meters was smashed into the lush mountains. Several ravines were formed. Long Yunxiao was lying at the bottom of the pit. He was buried by dust and gravel, and he looked quite miserable. The war god armor that he was wearing dimmed a lot, and its power was greatly weakened. On the left side of his chest, there was a dent that was as long as a chopstick. Although his injuries weren't serious, he struggled to climb out of the ruins and flapped his wings to fly high into the sky. But the blood-red blade had already dissipated and turned back into Xue Qianzhang's appearance. He was rushing towards Yunyao at lightning speed. Sky-capturing demon palm. Xue Qianzhang rushed in front of Yunyao in the blink of an eye. He waved his hand and formed a giant demon palm that grabbed towards Yunyao. Yunyao was injured just now. Her face was as pale as paper, and her breathing was chaotic and weak. Seeing the sky-capturing demon palm that covered the sky, she could only desperately wave the cold moon sword and use all her strength to block it. Moonlight essence. She waved her sword and slashed out a moonlight sword light, but it was immediately crushed by the sky-capturing demon palm and turned into moonlight. In the next moment, the sky-capturing demon palm grabbed her head and held her firmly in the palm. No matter how she struggled, even if she used all her potential, she couldn't escape from the demon palm. Swoosh! The sky-capturing demon palm grabbed Yunyao and flew back to Xue Qianzhang. Xue Qianzhang suddenly revealed a proud expression and sneered, "Ha ha ha. I have been watching you for a long time. Don't even think about escaping from me." Long Yunxiao saw Yunyao being captured with his own eyes. He was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He recklessly waved his sword and attacked Xue Qianzhang. Xue Qianzhang! You ugly and lowly devil, release her for this monarch. Seeing Yunyao seriously injured and trapped in the demon palm, he was so sad and anxious that his eyes turned red. If he could choose, he would rather be captured by the demon palm than see Yunyao injured. However, Xue Qianzhang squinted at him and sneered contemptuously, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Don't overestimate yourself. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and unleashed an earth-shattering blood light towards Long Yunxiao. That earth-shattering blood light immediately turned into a 100-meter-long blood light sword and fiercely stabbed towards Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao quickly waved the 9-cloud sword and dragon teeth blade and unleashed an earth-shattering sword light and saber light to meet the blood light sword. Bang bang! Two deafening sounds burst out, and the saber light and sword light exploded at the same time. Long Yunxiao was once again sent flying by the blood light sword and smashed into the mountain below. The mountain that was already full of cracks was smashed into a huge deep pit, and dust and stone fragments splashed everywhere. Long Yunxiao's internal organs were seriously injured, and blood immediately flowed out from his mouth and nose. He lay at the bottom of the deep pit in a sorry state. Xue Qianzhang didn't attack again. He looked down at Long Yunxiao in the deep pit and shouted coldly, "Long Yunxiao, I will spare your life today. Go back and tell Ji Tianqing that if he wants to save Yunyao, he has to come to the Dark Wind Cave in Black Ink Mountain to find me. I will only give him 1 day. If he doesn't come, don't blame me for being ruthless and killing his sweetheart." After that, Xue Qianzhang grabbed Yunyao and turned into a blood cloud, flying away as fast as lightning. Chapter 714. Long Yunxiao watched as Yunyao was taken away and the blood cloud flew away at lightning speed. He was filled with anger and fury. He chased after them recklessly to save Yunyao. However, his speed was too slow. He couldn't catch up with the blood cloud that Xue Qianjiang had transformed into. In the end, he chased for dozens of miles. The blood cloud disappeared in the sky and completely disappeared. Long Yunxiao could only stop the chase. He turned around and left reluctantly, returning to Continent Center City. Although he knew the location of Black Ink Mountain, he couldn't chase after it alone. With his strength, he couldn't defeat Xue Qianjiang. Moreover, he was seriously injured. He could only return to the monarch mansion as soon as possible and tell this news to Ji Tianqing. The dark red blood cloud wrapped Yunyao and flew across the sky as fast as lightning. 6 hours later, the blood cloud flew into an undulating mountain range and landed on a black mountain peak that was 4,000 meters tall. This black mountain peak was Black Ink Mountain, located 3,000 miles south of Continent Center City. Halfway up Black Ink Mountain, there was a narrow path that was close to the cliff. The path was only half a meter wide. On the inside, there was a straight and steep cliff. On the outside, there was a cliff shrouded in clouds and mist. At the end of the path, there was a dark cave entrance that was covered by a layer of hazy black mist. Swoosh! The blood cloud landed outside the cave entrance and changed back into Xue Qianjiang's appearance. He held Yunyao in his left hand while his right hand shot out streaks of blood light into the cave entrance. He was activating the defensive array of the cave entrance. Yunyao was held in his hand. Her whole body was covered by a layer of dark red blood light. Her true essence was sealed and suppressed. She was also unconscious. After a while, Xue Qianjiang activated the defensive array of the cave entrance. The layer of hazy black mist immediately dissipated. The tall stone door at the cave entrance opened automatically. Xue Qianjiang held Yunyao and walked in. Behind the stone door, there was a winding passage. It was a little dark and damp. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood and devil energy. Although there were many forks and branches in the passage, it was as complicated as a maze. But Xue Qianjiang was very familiar with this place. After a few twists and turns, he entered the belly of the Black Ink Mountain and arrived at a wide and tall cave. The cave was cold and gloomy, and the decorations were very simple. There were only a few stone stools and a stone table. In the middle of the cave stood an ancient pitch-black cauldron that was 10 meters tall. The pill cauldron was made of black meteoric iron. It had 3 legs, and its body was engraved with the secret characters and patterns of the demon race. It exuded an evil and ancient aura. On the ground below the cauldron, there was an array formation engraved on the rock. It was at least 30 meters in radius. This array formation continuously gathered devil chi and bloody light, gathering near the black pill cauldron and igniting a dark red, bloody flame. The blood-red flame brought a faint light, barely dispelling the darkness in the cave. When Xue Qianjiang carried Yunyao into the cave, a figure immediately walked out from the dark corner. This person was more than 3 meters tall, and his body was tall and sturdy like a bull. He wore blood-red leather armor, and his entire body emitted a bloodthirsty aura. He quickly walked in front of Xue Qianjiang, bowed, and said, "Welcome back to the cave, Demon King." Xue Qianjiang glanced at him and asked in a dignified voice, "Xueli, when I was not in the dark wind cave, was there any trouble?" Xueli quickly replied, "Demon King, there was no abnormality or trouble." Xue Qianjiang carried Yunyao into the cave, and asked as he walked, "What about that girl?" Xueli followed him respectfully, and said again, "She struggled in vain for half a day, and has no strength left. She has been quiet for a long time." "Okay." Xue Qianjiang nodded with satisfaction, and walked to a dark corner of the cave, and stopped in front of a stone door. This stone door was open from the rock wall, and behind the door was a secret room. Without Xue Qianzhang's command, Xue Li took the initiative to open the stone door's array formation. With a creaking sound, the stone door opened by itself. Behind the door was a secret room about 10 meters in radius. The secret room was dark, and there was a simple gemstone lamp in the corner, emitting a dim silver light. On the wall facing the door, there were several thick cold iron chains, and a young girl wearing a long brocade dress and a jade phoenix crown was firmly tied to it. This girl's face was beautiful, and her temperament was noble. However, her clothes were a little messy, and the jade phoenix crown was a little crooked. She looked very embarrassed. Her limbs and waist were tied by several cold iron chains, and her vital qi was sealed, so she could not break free. When Xue Qianzhang and Xue Li stepped into the secret room, she was leaning against the cold wall, and her hair was disheveled. She was silently resting and recovering her strength. Hearing the sound of the door opening, she slowly looked up at Xue Qianzhang, and glanced at Yunyao in Xue Qianzhang's hand. When she saw Yunyao's face, she immediately showed a shocked expression, and her eyes were full of doubts. It's her? How did she get caught? Xue Qianzhang carried Yunyao to the left side of the wall, and tied her up with cold iron chains. Then, he walked out of the secret room with Xue Li. After the stone door was closed, the secret room returned to its quiet and dark state. After a long time, Yunyao, who was in a coma, gradually woke up. She slowly opened her eyes, raised her head, and looked around with blurry eyes. When she saw that this was a secret room full of demon qi, she realized that she was caught in the cave residence of the demon king Xue Qianzhang. She looked down and saw the cold iron chains tied to her limbs, and subconsciously tried to use her power to struggle, only to find that her power had been sealed. At this moment, a clear female voice rang in her ears. Yunyao, why were you also captured and brought here? Yunyao subconsciously turned her head, and saw a young girl 10 steps away, who was also tied up by cold iron chains. When she saw the young girl's appearance, she suddenly frowned, and revealed a surprised look. Ansoan? Why are you here? The two looked at each other, full of doubts, and did not understand what was going on. After a moment of silence, Yunyao explained, this morning, I received a mysterious letter. There was only one sentence in the letter, if you want to save the heavenly concubine, go to Mount Yen in the southern suburbs. I took the letter to find the emperor, and after asking about the situation, I found out that you had left the monarch mansion, and the emperor also received a similar letter. The emperor was worried about your safety, so I left the monarch mansion with him, and rushed to Mount Yen to save you. We did not find you and the letter writer in Mount Yen, and after waiting for a few hours, we met the demon king Xue Qianzhang. The demon king Xue Qianzhang is very powerful, and he seriously injured me and the emperor, so he caught me and brought me here. Yunyao explained everything that had happened, then asked Ansoan, how did you get caught and brought here? What exactly happened before that? Brothers, let the outbreak begin. Today's update. Chapter 7:15. After listening to Yunyao's explanation, Ansoan finally understood what had happened. Although she still hated Yunyao in her heart. But now, both of them were in prison and their fates were unknown. She temporarily suppressed her hatred and explained in a low voice, that day, I left the Cloud Palace in a fit of anger and left the monarch mansion. Not long after I left the Forest of Divine Monuments, before I could decide where to go, I was knocked unconscious by a mysterious masked expert. When I woke up, I discovered that I was in a dark cave. My true essence was sealed and I was imprisoned in the cave. And I also saw that the masked expert was fighting with 2 experts from the demon clan. Not long after they fought, the masked expert was no match for the 2 experts from the demon clan and escaped with injuries. I fell into the hands of the 2 experts from the demon clan. Oh right, One of the two experts from the demon clan was the demon king Xueqianjiang that you mentioned. The other expert from the demon clan seemed to be Xueqianjiang's subordinate. After I fell into their hands, I heard them talking in the demon clan's language for a while, as if they were discussing something. After they finished discussing, Xueqianjiang left alone and I don't know where he went. Xueqianjiang's subordinate captured me and brought me here. Hearing this, Yunyao suddenly came to a realization and understood the whole story. She said to Ensuan, the cave you were imprisoned in should be in the Swallow Return Mountain. The person who sent the letter to me and the Son of Heaven should be the mysterious expert who knocked you unconscious. No wonder when we rushed to the Swallow Return Mountain, we couldn't find you and the person who wrote the letter. We only saw traces of fighting in the mountain. So that's why. Yunyao thought for a while and asked Ensuan, Heavenly Concubine, do you know the identity of the mysterious expert who knocked you unconscious? Ensuan shook her head. Yunyao asked again, is the mysterious expert from the human clan or the demon clan? Ensuan seriously thought for a while and said with certainty, that mysterious expert should be from the human clan and not the demon clan. He didn't have the characteristics of the demon clan and the martial skill he used was also the power of true essence. Furthermore, this person is no stranger to the royal residence. Yunyao frowned and fell into contemplation. She muttered, that mysterious expert is a human. He isn't a stranger to the King Mansion. Why does his letter have the aura of an alien race? Thinking of this, a thought suddenly flashed through her mind, and she immediately guessed a person. Could it be, that mysterious expert is Murong Lingfeng? Yunyao knew clearly that as one of the 3 great thousand ancient aristocratic families, the Murong family had a special inherited secret technique that allowed them to create and imitate the auras of other clans. It was precisely because of this that the Murong family's elites could disguise themselves and sneak into the various clans to gather information and obtain all sorts of confidential information. The main business of the Murong family is neither refining pills nor refining tools. Instead, it is collecting confidential information and selling all kinds of information. For nearly 1,000 years, the Murong family had used secret techniques and various methods to create an information network that covered the Central Plains and the Four Corners continent. As long as it was a major event that happened in the profound Sky continent, almost nothing could escape the eyes and ears of the Murong family. The Murong family had spies all over the world. They could even disguise themselves as other clans and sneak into other clans. Even in the northern desert, the bitterest place in the continent, the Murong family had spies and messengers that could spy on the movements of the demon race. Many times, when the imperial court wanted to gather confidential information, they had to borrow the power of the Murong family. It was precisely because of this that the Murong family was heavily relied on by the imperial court and could stand tall for 1,000 years without declining. Yunyao's expression was solemn as she silently pondered, if the mysterious expert that knocked Ensuan unconscious is really Murong Lingfeng, then it is not hard to understand. The Murong family wanted to use Ensuan to deal with me and the emperor, to completely disrupt the situation. Therefore, they also sent me a letter. However, Murong Lingfeng did not expect that halfway through the plan, he would encounter the demon king Xueqianjiang. With Yunyao's intelligence, she quickly guessed the cause. However, this was only her deduction. Before the truth was revealed, she could not be completely sure. Soon, Yunyao suppressed the many thoughts in her mind. She looked at Ensuan and calmly said, "You don't have to worry. Very soon, someone will come to save us." Ensuan indifferently glanced at her and coldly snorted, "Humph." This consort was indeed a bit worried that the cruel and ruthless devil would most likely kill this consort. "I did not expect you to be captured. Since you are with me, what is there for me to worry about? After all, the emperor would definitely not bear to let you lose a single strand of hair. No matter what, he will come to save you." Ensuan's tone was filled with jealousy and ridicule. Her eyes were also filled with enmity and hatred. Yunyao calmly glanced at her. She could see that she was still holding a grudge and was still brooding over the previous matter. She solemnly said, I, Yunyao, only love Ji Tianqing. In this life, I will not marry anyone else but him. I will definitely hold hands with him until the end of time. As for Long Yunxiao, his thoughts and actions have nothing to do with me. I can't control him, and I can't influence his thoughts and decisions. Speaking up to this point, she stared at Ansoan and calmly said, Ansoan, you are not a commoner in the mortal world. Why do you have to be a narrow-minded jealous woman? Instead of wasting your time and energy on jealousy, why don't you spend more time thinking about how to capture Long Yunxiao's heart? What should you do to secure your position as the heavenly consort? When Ansoan heard the words narrow-minded and jealous woman, she instinctively frowned. A trace of anger flashed through her eyes. However, Yunyao's words were reasonable. There was not a single bit of falsehood in them. She stared blankly for a moment. The anger on her face and eyes gradually dissipated. She silently lowered her head. She also understood that Yunyao was right. If she wanted to win the emperor's favor, she had to follow the emperor's wishes. She clearly knew that the emperor was infatuated with Yunyao, but she never thought about how to capture the emperor's heart. Instead, she went against Yunyao and schemed and competed with her. She was simply asking for trouble. It would only make the emperor more and more disgusted with her. Ansoan's eyes shone brightly. She thought to herself, as the heavenly consort, I should be both talented and virtuous. I should have the style of a motherly model of the world. Only then can I obtain the emperor's and imperial court's recognition. I should be more magnanimous in order to resolve the awkward situation in front of me. As long as Yunyao doesn't want to marry the emperor and doesn't want to compete for the position of the heavenly consort, the emperor will never be able to obtain her. I will always be the heavenly consort. Time can change everything. Although the emperor can't let go of Yunyao for now, as long as I stay by the emperor's side, one day I will be able to change his mind and let him see my infatuation. Thinking up to here, Ansoan's gaze became much calmer and gentler. The haze that shrouded her heart also gradually dissipated. She looked at Yunyao with a sincere gaze and said in a serious tone, Yunyao, I did misunderstand you before. My actions were a bit overboard. Chapter 7:16. At the same time, in the monarch mansion. A dazzling golden light streaked across the sky, flying towards the peak of the Tianqing mountain range. Swoosh! The golden light landed outside the gate of the Tianqing palace, revealing a handsome and tall figure. This handsome young man in a golden robe was the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao. His face was pale and bloodless, and his true qi aura was somewhat chaotic and weak. It was obvious that his injuries were not light. However, he did not care about his injuries at all. After landing, he hurriedly walked towards the gate. Where's Ji Tianqing? I have something to talk to him about. The guard at the gate recognized him and did not stop him. He quickly opened the gate to welcome him. Your Majesty, my master is cultivating in seclusion in the secret room. Long Yunxiao stepped over the gate and quickly walked towards the Tianqing palace. He ordered with a dignified expression, quickly take me to the secret room. The guard understood the urgency of the matter and did not dare to ask any more questions. He quickly led him to Ji Tianqing's residence. After 100 breaths of time, the two entered the palace where Ji Tianqing lived and came to the door of the secret room. Long Yunxiao personally knocked on the door. He waved his hand and sent a ray of true qi into the array of the secret room's stone door. Suddenly, the stone door lit up with a dazzling brilliance and emitted a strong true qi fluctuation. The secret room was dimly lit, and there were strands of colorful spiritual energy floating in the air. Ji Tianqing was sitting cross-legged in the heavenly spiritual array, using the 30 times gravity to temper his body. He was immediately alarmed. Very quickly, he stopped his hands and stopped his cultivation. He ended his meditation and opened his eyes. At this time, Long Yunxiao's voice came from outside the secret room. "Ji Tianqing, I have something to talk to you about. Quickly come out and meet me." Hearing Long Yunxiao's words, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. "Long Yunxiao actually came to find me and even knocked on my door to interrupt my cultivation. What happened? Why is it so urgent?" These thoughts flashed through his mind. He quickly waved his hand to open the array and opened the door of the secret room. Along with a creaking sound, the large and heavy stone door slowly rose. Ji Tianqing quickly stepped through the door and walked out of the secret room. When he saw Long Yunxiao, he immediately knew that Long Yunxiao was injured. He looked anxious and worried. He quickly asked, "Tianzi, what happened?" Long Yunxiao didn't waste any time and pulled him out. "Yao Yao was captured by the Devil King Xueqianjiang. I was also injured by Xueqianjiang. Quickly come with me to save her. As for what happened, I'll tell you in detail later." "What? Yao Yao was captured by the Demon King Xueqianjiang?" When Ji Tianqing heard that something had happened to Yun Yao, he immediately frowned. His eyes were filled with worry, and his heart was in his throat. He hurriedly followed Long Yunxiao out of Tianqing Palace and flew towards the exit of the monarch residence as fast as lightning. On the way, Long Yunxiao used the soul sense sound transmission to tell the cause of the matter. After Ji Tianqing heard it, his expression became a little complicated. He murmured to himself, "I didn't expect that such a thing would happen in just a few days of secluded cultivation." The heavenly concubine disappeared and was captured by a mysterious expert. Yao Yao was also captured by Xueqianjiang and was imprisoned. Regardless of the heavenly concubine, I have to save Yao Yao no matter what. I can't let anything happen to her. Very quickly, 6 hours passed. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao flew for 3,000 miles and finally arrived at the Black Ink Mountain in the mountains. The two stood in the sky above the Black Ink Mountain, overlooking the dark brown mountain peak and carefully observing it. Suddenly, a blood cloud appeared in the sky above the mountain peak, which was more than 10,000 feet high. It lit up with a dark red blood light. Swish! The blood cloud gushed out from the Black Ink Mountain and flew to the sky in the blink of an eye. It turned into a figure that was more than 3 meters tall. This figure was a demon clan man wearing a blood-red robe. His skin was as pale as a corpse. He had a flat mouth, revealing a few sharp fangs. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao had seen him before. They immediately recognized him. This person was the Demon King Xueqianjiang. Xueqianjiang stood high in the sky. He looked at Ji Tianqing with his blood-red eyes and sneered. "Ji Tianqing, we meet again. Last time, you were lucky to escape. This time, you sent yourself to me. Ha ha ha." Xueqianjiang's tone was full of complacency. He looked at Ji Tianqing with eyes that were full of bloodthirst and murderous intent. Ji Tianqing stared at him coldly and shouted angrily, "Xueqianjiang! If you have any tricks, come at me. If you dare to let Yun Yao lose a single strand of hair, I will definitely cut you into pieces." Ha ha ha. Xueqianjiang laughed more and more wildly. He hooked his finger at him and said contemptuously, "Want to save your sweetheart? Let's see if you have the ability. I will be in the dark wind cave, waiting for you to die." After saying that, his figure flashed and turned into a dark red blood cloud. He quickly drilled back into the Black Ink Mountain and disappeared. Ji Tianqing quickly chased after him and landed on the Black Ink Mountain with Long Yunxiao. After landing on the summit of the mountain, he looked around a few times and discovered that the entire Black Ink Mountain was enveloped by a large defensive array. It was obviously unrealistic to use the earth escape technique to drill into the mountain. He released his spiritual sense to explore a few hundred meters. Soon, he found that there was a winding path halfway up the mountain. At the end of the winding path, there was a dark and mysterious cave entrance. Found it. That should be Shui Qianzhang's Dark Wind Cave. Ji Tianqing quickly flew to the mountainside with Long Yunxiao and landed on the path outside the Dark Wind Cave. He saw that the dark cave entrance was covered by a thick layer of blood light. He couldn't see the situation inside the cave. The blood light that sealed the cave entrance formed a light wall with a radius of 10 meters. It constantly flickered with blood-red flames and emitted a strong evil aura. Ji Tianqing only took a few glances to determine that the entrance of the Dark Wind Cave was also arranged with a powerful demonic array. It combined defense and counterattack into one. Its power was extraordinary. He turned to look at Long Yunxiao and said with a dignified face, "Son of Heaven, I have fought with Shui Qianzhang. This demon king's strength is not bad. He also has a magic weapon in his hand. He is very difficult to deal with. Not only is the Black Ink Mountain protected by an array, but the cave entrance is also arranged with a mysterious demonic array. Even with my attainments in array, I can't solve it in a short time. Once we enter the Dark Wind Cave, I am afraid it will be difficult to get out smoothly. Now that you are injured, it is inconvenient for you to fight a bloody battle. It is better to wait outside the cave." Long Yunxiao looked at the thick blood light at the cave entrance and gently shook his head. "Shui Qianzhang's strength is really strong. How can I let you fight with him alone? If we join hands, won't the chance of success be greater?" Ji Tianqing slightly frowned and thought in his heart, "Son of Heaven is willing to risk his life to save Yao Yao. It seems that he hasn't given up on Yao Yao. However, the urgent matter was to save Yun Yao. He couldn't care so much." Chapter 717. Ji Tianqing knew that Shui Qianzhang had set up this trap to deal with him. However, Yun Yao was imprisoned in the Dark Wind Cave. He had to save her no matter what. In order to save Yun Yao as soon as possible, he didn't dare to waste any time. He quickly used his array to break the Demon Dao array at the entrance of the Dark Wind Cave. Long Yunxiao was also worried and anxious. He helped him break the array. After an hour, the two of them finally cracked the Devil Dao Grand Array at the entrance of the cave after exhausting their mental and physical strength. A large crack immediately appeared on the wall of light formed by the dark red light. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao went through the crack without hesitation and entered the Dark Wind Cave. Swoosh! The two of them went through the blood light wall and entered the dark tunnel. They ran down the winding tunnel and released their spiritual senses to check the surroundings. They were alert at all times. After 15 minutes, the two of them finally reached the end of the tunnel and entered a tall and wide cave. The cave was located in the belly of the mountain and was 1,000 meters underground. The ground was a little damp. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood. There were also strands of dark red light floating in the air. There were dozens of dark red blood crystals on the ceiling of the cave. They were emitting a dim red light and brought a weak light to the cave. With the help of the weak red light, Ji Tianqing saw that there was an ancient black cauldron in the middle of the cave. The three-legged cauldron was 10 meters tall. The surface of the cauldron was engraved with mysterious demon clan characters and patterns. It was emitting a dark red light and a mysterious and evil aura. There was a demon Dao array under the cauldron. It was constantly gathering blood qi and blood light. It turned into a burning blood flame and poured into the cauldron. On the left side of the ancient black cauldron, there was a tall and thin figure. It was Shui Qianzhang, who was wearing a blood-red robe. Shui Qianzhang's dark red eyes stared at Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao. He grinned and sneered contemptuously, "You two idiots really came. The reason why the human race is so weak and vulnerable is because you are bound by emotions and desires. Even if you know that this king has set up traps and ambushes here, in order to save your beloved woman, you still have to obediently send yourselves to death. Hee, you humans are really stupid and pitiful. But we demons are different. What this king is most disgusted by is the 7 emotions and 6 desires. In front of powerful martial strength and a prosperous country, any beauty is insignificant. Xue Qianzhang's entire body was emitting an overbearing and valiant aura, appearing imposing and dignified. He was extremely proud and confident. He looked at Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao like a cat playing with a mouse. Ji Tianqing stared coldly at Xue Qianzhang and shouted coldly, "Xue Qianzhang! Cut the crap and hand over Yunyao immediately. I can still spare your life." Xue Qianzhang was stunned for a moment, then he raised his head and laughed, "Ha ha ha. Ji Tianqing, Ji Tianqing. You are about to die and yet you are still so arrogant. What a pitiful worm." After laughing, he waved his hand and shot out a dark red blood light towards the rock wall at the corner of the cave. Suddenly, a dark red brilliance lit up in that dark corner, revealing a layer of invisibility array formation. Swoosh! 2 stone pillars as thick as a water bucket appeared on the ground. Cold iron chains as thick as an arm wrapped around each of the stone pillars, binding a peerless beauty. Ji Tianqing looked carefully and recognized the woman in a white dress tied to the stone pillar on the left. She was Yunyao. The woman tied to the stone pillar on the right was wearing a long brocade dress and a jade phoenix golden crown. She was heavenly concubine Ansoan. Yunyao and Ansoan were both unconscious. Their hair was loose and covered half of their cheeks. Both of them were shrouded in a black fog of demonic energy. Obviously, the demonic energy had invaded their bodies and their life force had become extremely weak. They could die at any time. When Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao saw Ansoan, they were stunned for a moment and revealed a puzzled expression. Why is Ansoan here? She was also captured by Xue Qianzhang. What's going on? When they saw the situation of Yunyao and Ansoan, they immediately frowned and revealed a worried expression. Especially Yunyao's situation. Not only was she severely injured, but the demonic energy surrounding her body was also stronger. There was also a mysterious and cold energy in her body that was constantly devouring her life force. Xue Qianzhang saw Ji Tianqing's worried and furious expression and sneered proudly. "Ji Tianqing, I have already planted the blood-dissipating curse on Yunyao. This blood-dissipating curse is the supreme secret technique of our Blood-Wing tribe. Only the person who cast the curse can remove it personally. No elixir can save her. 3 days later, if I don't remove the blood-dissipating curse on Yunyao, her blood essence will melt, and she will completely lose her mind and her humanity. At that time, she will become a female devil who doesn't recognize her own family and kills anyone she sees. She only knows how to kill crazily. I really want to see how you will feel when she personally stabs a sword into your heart." Ha ha ha. Hearing Xue Qianzhang's words, Ji Tianqing was instantly enraged and his eyes were surging with cold killing intent. "Xue Qianzhang! You despicable and vicious devil, you will die a horrible death." Xue Qianzhang saw his angry and crazy appearance and laughed proudly. "Ha ha ha. Seeing your beloved woman's life hanging by a thread and about to become a female devil, you must be very angry and heartbroken, right? Good. Since you are so devoted to her, I will give you a chance to prove how devoted you are to her." Xue Qianzhang pointed at the black pill cauldron beside him and said to Ji Tianqing with a smile, "This is our Blood-Wing tribe's blood-refining king cauldron. It can refine the blood essence of 10,000 spirits and extract the bloodline of living beings. Ji Tianqing, if you really love Yunyao, then obediently jump into the blood-refining king cauldron and extract the Kenshin bloodline. As long as you give me the Kenshin bloodline, I will immediately release Yunyao and remove the blood-dissipating curse on her." Using the Kenshin bloodline in exchange for the life of your beloved woman, this is worth it. You won't reject it, right? If not, what's the difference between you and our demon clan? Ji Tianqing was silent and didn't speak, as if he was considering this matter. Long Yun Shao suddenly became anxious and hurriedly reminded, Ji Tianqing. Calm down, don't be fooled. The demon clan is naturally cunning and cruel. They are the most untrustworthy and will do anything to achieve their goals. Even if you hand over the Kenshin bloodline, Xueqian Jiang will still kill you and Yao Yao. Actually, even without Long Yun Zhao's reminder, how could Ji Tianqing not understand this logic? He knew better than anyone that as long as he still had the Kenshin bloodline, Xueqian Jiang wouldn't dare to kill him. Once he handed over the Kenshin bloodline, he would become a dispensable person. Chapter 7:18. Ji Tianqing didn't want to waste any more time when he saw Yun Yao's miserable look of being entangled by the demon qi. He didn't hesitate at all. His whole body was bursting with fighting spirit. A light flashed in his palm and he took out the black dragon sword. Swoosh! He held the black dragon sword and pointed it at Xueqian Jiang, who was 100 steps away. He shouted with murderous intent, Xueqian Jiang, stop talking nonsense. You want to take my Kenshin bloodline? You have to beat me first. I didn't kill you last time, but I will take your life today. As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing activated his majestic true essence and used his powerful sword art to attack Xueqian Jiang with an indomitable will. Red Dragon Flash. The cave was only about 200 meters wide. It wasn't wide enough. Ji Tianqing activated his violent flame power and condensed a 10-meter-long flame sword light. It was like a dragon piercing towards Xueqian Jiang. Swoosh! The dark red flame light illuminated the cave. It instantly crossed the distance of 100 steps and arrived in front of Xueqian Jiang. Xueqian Jiang was still overbearing and confident. He didn't put the sword light in his eyes. Ha ha ha. Little bastard, since you insist on seeking death, I will send you and Yun Yao to heaven together. Xueqian Jiang laughed contemptuously. He waved his sleeves and released a ball of dark red blood light. It turned into a blood whirlpool and rolled towards Ji Tianqing. That huge blood whirlpool swallowed the dragon-like flame sword light. Not a bit of fire was leaked out. Moreover, the blood whirlpool didn't reduce its power after swallowing the flame sword light. It even wanted to engulf Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing smelled the disgusting smell of blood. There was a terrifying swallowing power that engulfed his body and wanted to pull him into the whirlpool. At the critical moment, he immediately retreated and swung his sword again to release a golden sword light. Golden Emperor Slash. Ji Tianqing unleashed all of his power, condensing it into a 50-meter-long golden sword, slashing towards the blood vortex and Xueqian Jiang. The dazzling golden light illuminated the entire cave. Everything within a 200-meter radius could be seen clearly. The giant golden sword slashed through the blood-red vortex with unstoppable power. With a pop sound, the blood whirlpool burst like a bubble. It turned into countless blood lights and splashed in all directions. The Golden Emperor hit Xueqian Jiang again and sent him flying back to the cave wall. A huge crater appeared on the sturdy, dark brown rock wall, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared all around it. The 50-meter-long golden sword fell to the ground with a loud rumble. Boom! A loud and earth-shattering sound burst out, and reverberated intensely in the cave. 100-meter-long gully appeared on the ground, and countless cracks appeared all around it. The entire cave began to shake violently, and countless pieces of gravel and dust fell from the top of the cave. At the same time, Long Yun Shao donned the war god armor and wielded the nine-cloud sword. He waved the sword and pounced towards Xueqian Jiang, wanting to take advantage of the situation to attack. However, the stone door of a secret room on the left side of the cave suddenly opened. A tall and sturdy figure that looked like a bull rushed out as fast as lightning, carrying 2 large black iron axes. "Long Yun Shao, your opponent is me." This person was Xueli. He roared loudly and waved his thick arms. Holding the 2 axes, he hacked at Long Yun Shao. The 2 large iron axes weighed at least a few thousand kilograms. But in Xueli's hands, they were as light as paper. He waved the axes around, splashing out fierce and violent blood lights. Long Yun Shao's momentum was blocked. His figure was suddenly drowned by the axes. He was like a lonely boat in a stormy sea, swaying unsteadily and could capsize at any time. He had to wield the 9-cloud sword and the dragon teeth dagger to fight back with all his might. Xueli's strength had reached the 2nd level of Sky Origin stage. He was extremely strong and his attacks were extremely violent. Long Yun Shao was seriously injured, so his fighting strength was greatly reduced. Naturally, he was not Xueli's opponent. After a few moves, Long Yun Shao was shaken and flew out. He hit the ground 20 meters away, creating a big hole in the rocky ground. Xueli carried the 2 iron axes. Like a giant beast, he stepped on the ground and rushed toward Long Yun Shao. Wherever he walked, he left a series of deep pits in the ground. Ha ha ha. The human clan son of heaven is just so. Today, I will beat you. Xueli laughed wildly. He waved the axes again and attacked Long Yun Shao fiercely. Long Yun Shao tried his best to resist, but he was still beaten back. He kept retreating toward the exit of the dark wind cave. As the 2 of them fought, a rumbling sound rang out. Dust and gravel flew everywhere, and their strength continued to erupt. A violent hurricane swept up in the cave, causing the cave to be in chaos. On the other side, Ji Tianqing and Xue Qianjiang were also fighting fiercely. The 2 of them were stronger, so the power of their martial skills was more violent and frightening. As the 2 of them fought fiercely, loud rumbling noises kept bursting out, shaking the entire cave. The violent hurricane mixed with the bloody light and the brilliance of true yuan formed circle after circle of shockwaves that constantly spread out in all directions. The cave was blown apart. The roof of the cave kept collapsing, and countless boulders and dust fell. Ji Tianqing and Xue Qianjiang had only exchanged a dozen moves, and half of the cave had already collapsed. A huge hole appeared in the defensive formation protecting the cave on the spot. The cave was on the verge of collapse, and would soon collapse. Yunyao and Ensuan, on the other hand, were still tied to the stone pillars. Large millstone stones and dust continued to fall around them. Their lives were in danger at any time. The situation was getting more and more critical. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing quietly hid the black dragon sword in the ruins. He quickly passed through the gap in the formation, and escaped out of the dark wind cave. Xue Qianjiang was already in a killing frenzy. He couldn't wait to tear Ji Tianqing into pieces and extract his Kenshin bloodline. Seeing Ji Tianqing escape out of the dark wind cave, he chased after him without hesitation. After a while, Ji Tianqing, Xue Qianjiang, Long Yun Shao, and Xueli all left the dark wind cave. Only Yunyao and Ensuan were left in the dark wind cave, and the black dragon sword hidden in the ruins. At this time, the black dragon sword came out of the ruins, flew to Yunyao's side, and slashed at the cold iron chains with all its might. Dang dang dang, the sound of metal hitting metal sounded. The cold iron chains wrapped around Yunyao's body were immediately cut off by the black dragon sword. Yunyao broke free from the chains, and her body softly fell to the ground. The black dragon sword hesitated for a moment, and then flew to Ensuan's side. Dang dang dang, it cut off the cold iron chains that bound her. Ensuan was also saved. She fell unconscious on the ground. The black dragon sword circled in the air, and with a swoosh, it turned into a black dragon that was 10 meters long. It looked at the unconscious Yunyao and Ensoan. It shot out a gentle icy blue brilliance, enveloping Yunyao and Ensoan, and placed them on its back. Chapter 7:19. Outside the dark wind cave, in the sky thousands of feet above the ground, Ji Tianqing and Xue Qianjiang were desperately using their ultimate killing moves, fighting with all their might. Demonic Dragon Soul Search. Xue Qianjiang stepped high in the sky, and shouted with a murderous aura. He waved his sleeves, and his palms shot out a bloody light that covered the sky, condensing into two ferocious blood-red demonic dragons that were hundreds of meters long. Ong! Two ferocious blood-red demonic dragons with violent and bloodthirsty auras, as fast as the aurora, pierced through the sky, carrying an invincible and terrifying power, and fiercely attacked Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was immediately shrouded by the two demonic dragons' huge shadows, falling into the bloody light that filled the sky, and was in imminent danger. At the critical moment, he recklessly used all his strength, and his whole body burst out with a dazzling golden light, igniting a golden flame that soared into the sky. White Tiger Sacred Sword. Following his angry shout, his whole body disappeared, and merged with the monstrous golden flame, condensing into a huge golden sword that was hundreds of meters long. This huge sword was condensed, and it emitted an incomparably sharp aura, as if it had the power to split the sky and earth. The huge sword lit up with a golden light, condensing into a mountain-like white tiger shadow. It stretched out its claws and fangs, and fearlessly pounced on the two blood-red demonic dragons. A white tiger fighting two demonic dragons, and the sky and earth changed color. The sky within a radius of 10 miles was covered by the golden flame and the bloody light, and became chaotic. Bang! Bang! In the deafening loud noise, the white tiger sacred sword and the two demonic dragons collided, and the golden and bloody flames that covered the sky and earth burst out. The two blood-red demonic dragons and the white tiger sacred sword collapsed and exploded at the same time, turning into hundreds of millions of fingernail-sized fragments that scattered in the sky like raindrops. The violent and devastating shockwave burst out, and swept across a radius of 10 miles. The sky was shaken, and the few mountains nearby were also shaken by the shockwave. Ravines were split open, and countless rocks and soil collapsed. In the turbid sky, Ji Tianqing's figure appeared. His bun was messy, and his hair was disheveled, and he looked a little embarrassed. He stood high up in the sky, his face pale, breathing heavily, but his eyes were staring at Xue Qianjiang, who was 1,000 meters away. Xue Qianjiang is at least at the 7th level of the Sky Origin stage. Besides, he has cultivated the secret skill of the Blood Demon sect. If I don't use my trump card, I really can't do anything to him. This thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind, and his eyes surged with cold killing intent. At the same time, Xue Qianjiang was also stunned for a moment. His eyes flashed with astonishment. "Little bastard, your strength has improved. You actually managed to block this king's killing move. Humph, if you try this move again, I'll see if you die." Xue Qianjiang's murderous aura soared as he let out a low growl. His entire body surged with a bloody light that soared into the sky, burning with a bloody flame. Sky blood flowing light. Xue Qianjiang's body also started to burn, turning into a dense blood light that soared into the sky. Shua! The dark red blood light that covered the sky condensed into a bloody giant blade that was 100 meters long. It was like an evil god's war sword that could split the heaven and earth. It fell from the sky and slashed towards Ji Tianqing. Suddenly, the sky within a radius of 10 miles was sealed by an invisible force, and the air was frozen on the spot. Ji Tianqing wanted to retreat to avoid it, but it was like he was stuck in a quagmire. He struggled with all his might, but he couldn't move. His speed was as slow as a snail. Helplessly, he could only raise his left arm and activate the power of the red flame true fire. Burning Sky Palm. Ji Tianqing roared and waved his left palm to hit out a giant flaming palm that covered the sky, hitting the bloody light blade head-on. With a muffled sound, the giant flaming palm and the sky-splitting blade collided with a loud bang, exploding out a strong wind and dazzling brilliance that swept across the heaven and earth. The dark red blood light and flames that covered the sky suddenly spread over a radius of 20 miles, turning the entire area into a boundless sea of fire and blood. The bloody light blade was smashed into pieces on the spot, bursting into 108,000 pieces, splashing in all directions. Xue Qianzhang's figure appeared. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew back, tumbling in the sky for more than 1,000 meters before stabilizing his body with great difficulty. At the same time, the burning sky palm hit the black ink mountain below, smashing the mountain into pieces on the spot, and collapsed with a rumbling sound. Xue Qianzhang stood in the sky in a sorry state, looking at the black ink mountain that was smashed into pieces and turned into ruins. He was so angry that his whole body emitted blood fire. Damn little bastard! You dare to destroy my dark wind cave. If I don't crush your bones and scatter your ashes today, how can I get rid of the hatred in my heart? Little bastard, go to hell! Xue Qianzhang roared like a bell, completely furious and lost his mind. Blood fire gushed out from his whole body, bursting out an overbearing aura that suppressed the heaven and earth, as well as a terrifying murderous aura that could slaughter the common people. At this moment, his body expanded more than 10 times, and he actually turned into a blood-robed giant that was nearly 100 meters tall. He was like an ancient demon god, with an extremely powerful aura. He took out an ancient and broken scroll from his spatial ring, poured his life's power into the scroll, and slowly opened it. This ancient and broken scroll was his family heirloom, the relic of the Blood Emperor, the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. Although Ji Tianqing was intercepted by Xue Qianzhang last time, he had used the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to break open the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. This Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map had a gap that had not been repaired until now, and its power was only about 40%. But after all, this was a soul-level treasure. Even if there were gaps and loopholes, its power was still terrifying. Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. Following Xue Qianzhang's low shout, the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map immediately released a blood light that covered the sky and the earth, filling a radius of 20 miles. Suddenly, the dark red blood light dyed half of the sky, and the sky within a radius of 20 miles turned into a boundless sea of blood. Ji Tianqing was submerged in the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. He could only see the endless blood light around him, and he could not see anything outside. The mountains and forests below, as well as the ruins, were all submerged in the sea of blood. Xue Qianzhang stood above the sea of blood and kept waving his palms, manipulating the power of the boundless sea of blood to devour Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing struggled in the sea of blood, trying his best to resist the bombardment and suppression of the shocking blood waves. There were also endless corpses and skeletons that condensed into a huge monster that was crazily besieging him. He stared sharply at Xue Qianzhang and sneered, "Xue Qianzhang, you used this Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map before, but you still could not stop me. Today, if you use this technique again, it will be even more impossible to trap me." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing took out the Domain Master's golden seal from the space ring. When he was intercepted by Duanmu Huang, he used the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to block 3 of Duanmu Huang's killing moves. Although the 3 seals that the Emperor had placed on the Seal of Mountains and Rivers were gone, the power of this treasure was not as strong as before. But it still had an extremely strong defensive power. World Annihilation Dragon Spear. Ji Tianqing held the Seal of Mountains and Rivers with both hands and fully activated the power of the Seal of Mountains and Rivers, releasing a golden spear light that was more than 300 meters long. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.